Trapped in a nightmare of endless conflict, soldiers are consumed by despair and a burning desire for revenge as the shadows of war close in on them. A monstrous warrior screams in pure fury, his eyes glowing blood red as raw hatred consumes his entire being. Amidst the dark, silent forest, two soldiers warily watch a mysterious cloaked figure riding a horse in the distance. The cloaked boy holds an ancient scroll, muttering a bizarre, incomprehensible spell that begins to hum with strange energy. Confused and alarmed, the blonde soldier demands to know what the mysterious boy is muttering under his breath. Feeling threatened, the gray-haired soldier aggressively yells at the boy to clear the path immediately. Ignoring the hostile warnings, the cloaked boy continues chanting his spell, unleashing a strange word of power. Losing his patience, the angry soldier readies his glowing crossbow, aiming directly at the boy with deadly intent. Quick as lightning, the cloaked boy hurls a defensive spell into the air just as the soldier prepares to fire. A massive surge of blinding blue magic erupts from the boy, shooting straight into the stormy skies above. The soldiers watch in utter disbelief, wondering if the terrifying noise echoing through the forest is actual thunder. A colossal, destructive bolt of blue lightning crashes down from the sky, shattering the quiet of the woods. The devastating blast blows the soldiers away, their terrified cries echoing as pure chaos erupts around them. A glowing system window suddenly appears, revealing that an ancient mystery is demanding to know the smiling boy's true identity. The scene shifts to a phone screen displaying Ritsuki Katayama's official university acceptance notification, a long-awaited moment of triumph. Tragedy strikes in an instant as a massive truck blinds Ritsuki with its headlights mid-crossing, accompanied by deafening horns. An oppressive darkness takes over, brutally confirming his instant demise on the cold asphalt. Clinging to his final moments of consciousness, Ritsuki bitterly laments his brief life and the college dream cut tragically short. In the void of death, he despairs over dying so miserably right after achieving his goals. His shattered phone screen lies uselessly on the ground, symbolizing the absolute end of his old life. Suddenly, a warm light pierces through the darkness as he slowly regains consciousness in a completely unfamiliar place. The newly reborn baby stares up in absolute bewilderment, trying to comprehend his bizarre new reality. A peasant couple looks down at the newborn in complete shock, expressing surprise at his unusually dark hair. Realizing he has been reincarnated, he quickly learns that his new family of simple farmers is incredibly poor. A family portrait highlights his new life, showing him as the odd black-haired child among his red-haired and blonde relatives. While his parents and older brothers work the fields, he and his little blonde sister spend their days foraging for food in the wild. Local kids on a hill point and mock him, calling him a gross black-haired crow. He sits by the campfire, frustrated that his black hair makes him an easy target for bullies in this new world. Eating his simple meal, the boy complains about the cruel joke of being reincarnated into medieval poverty. Suddenly, a strange glow reflects in his eye, catching his attention and halting his thoughts. A blue system window finally manifests before him, introducing his new identity as Ian Raven. The glowing system interface flickers, teasing a grand, mysterious revelation about his destiny. Ian gulps in anticipation, sweat dripping down his face as he awaits the system's final verdict on his potential. The window abruptly delivers a harsh, insulting evaluation, leaving Ian completely speechless and defeated. He gazes at the beautiful sky, realizing that a useless status window changes absolutely nothing about his grim reality. He watches his parents toil away, knowing he is doomed to inherit their endless cycle of debt and heavy labor. Looking at the family farm, he accepts that his future is entirely bound to the harsh soil. An heavy sense of despair and hopelessness settles over him as he contemplates his inescapable fate. Sitting by the fire with his sister, Ian resolves himself to a lifetime of simple farm work. He closes his eyes, mourning the lack of opportunities to learn or escape his mundane life. He imagines himself in various grand professions, confident he could excel as a knight, artist, or scholar if given a chance. Holding his roasted fish, he sighs and wonders if there is any place in this vast world that could offer him a better life. His little sister stares intently at his food, drool dripping from her mouth in sheer hunger. With a gentle smile, Ian offers his sister the extra fish, and she happily thanks her kind older brother. Looking up at the sunny canopy, they eagerly decide to go forage for wild berries to finish their meal. Ian watches his little sister wander into the bushes, reminding her to stay close and be careful. The cute blonde girl happily munches on the sweet wild berries she found in the thick brush. Ian smiles warmly at her, amazed at how quickly his little sister is growing up in this harsh world. Suddenly, a loud rustling sound in the bushes catches his attention, and Ian's eyes widen in immediate alert. The siblings freeze in terror as a standing, menacing shadow looms over them from behind the trees, signaling imminent danger. Cornered by a sudden, terrifying menace in the depths of the forest, Ian freezes in sheer shock as his desperate survival instincts kick in. A monstrous, towering bear with glowing crimson eyes erupts from the thick brush, unleashing a deafening, bloodthirsty roar. Shielding his terrified little sister, Ian prepares for the worst as a massive, razor-sharp claw swings down with lethal force. Bracing for the fatal blow, Ian tightly cradles his sister, expecting his fragile second life to end in an instant. Suddenly, a massive bolt of crackling blue lightning descends from above, directly striking the monstrous beast. The colossal beast stumbles back in agony, smoking from the devastating blast of pure magical energy. With a resounding thud, the giant predator crashes onto the forest floor, completely neutralized. As the dust settles, a mysterious figure approaches, casually noting that her destructive spell might have been a bit excessive. Out of the shadowy forest steps a cloaked woman with glowing glasses, greeting the bewildered siblings with eerie calm. The woman adjusts her glasses with a warm smile, politely inquiring if they are currently inside the Feldenberg territory. Confirming their location, Ian stares in absolute awe, desperately trying to comprehend the sheer magical power of their savior. She cheerfully introduces herself as Eridus, a wandering mage traveling through these remote lands. Ian freezes, the word echoing in his mind as he realizes a genuine practitioner of magic stands right before him. In this world, a mage represents a legendary force of unparalleled destruction, capable of altering the fate of entire nations. Renowned for their brilliant skills and immense destructive power, these rare elites rule the battlefield like living gods. Looking at Eridus, Ian silently wonders why such a prestigious figure would ever visit a forgotten rural town. A tense silence falls over the forest path as Ian nervously prepares his next words. The wandering mage drops a massive bombshell, revealing she traveled here specifically to find a black-haired boy. Locking her eyes onto Ian, Eridus asks if there are any other black-haired boys nearby, to which he nervously replies in the negative. A triumphant smile spreads across Eridus's face as she realizes her long search is finally ended. Ian points to himself in absolute disbelief, his heart racing as he tries to understand why a powerful mage is targeting him. Eridus recalls the cryptic prophecy she received from a mysterious hooded figure who instructed her to locate him. She remembers the bizarre promise that taking this specific child as an apprentice would bring incredible fortune. Observing the young boy's fierce curiosity and underlying fear, the mage decides to trust the prophecy and extend a life-changing offer. Eridus laughs to herself, amused by the strange but accurate guidance of the eccentric chronomancers. Ian is pleasantly surprised, realizing that this legendary mage is far kinder than the terrifying eccentrics described in local folklore. Yet, the memory of her crushing power remains fresh, reminding Ian of how she obliterated a giant beast in one hit. Summoning his courage, the young boy speaks up, asking the wandering mage a critical question about the power she wields. Ian tentatively brings up the magnificent spell she cast to save them, his curiosity burning bright. Eridus easily notes his growing fascination, while Ian confesses that witnessing real magic with his own eyes was utterly breathtaking. With a warm, encouraging smile, Eridus reassures him that magic is a skill that anyone can master with proper guidance. The simple words spark a deep hope inside Ian's chest, making him realize that perhaps his fate isn't sealed after all. Looking up with determination, Ian asks the ultimate question, desperate to know if a poor farm boy can master the mystic arts. A knowing smile plays on the mage's lips, sensing the raw determination radiating from the young boy. Patting his head, Eridus promises him that with the right guidance, he can indeed rise above his station and become a true mage. Extending her hand, the legendary wandering mage officially offers to take him under her wing and teach him the secrets of magic. She invites him to become her apprentice, presenting him with a golden ticket out of his miserable, impoverished life. Staring at her outstretched hand, Ian realizes this is the miraculous turning point he has been praying for. Clenching his fist with iron resolve, he embraces this golden path that will finally free him from a lifetime of grueling farm labor. He firmly clasps her hand, officially sealing their master-disciple bond and embarking on a brand new destiny. Soon, they arrive at a breathtaking windmill cottage perched atop a massive, cloud-ringed cliffside. Entering his new sanctuary, Ian sits at a study desk, his heart pounding in eager anticipation of his first lesson. Eridus presents an ancient spellbook, congratulating him on successfully securing permission from both his parents and the local lord to study under her. Eridus demands his absolute best, and with fire in his eyes, Ian confidently declares his complete readiness for the grueling trials ahead. Surrounded by mysterious potions and ancient relics, the master and disciple prepare to unlock the secrets of the cosmos. Ian dives into his studies, relentlessly devouring massive stacks of books as the system tracks his steady magical progress. Against all odds, a glowing system notification confirms he has achieved absolute mastery over the ancient language of the Archmage. 7 long, grueling years of intense training pass in a flash, forging a once-weak farm boy into a capable young man. Eridus proudly announces the end of his theoretical studies, ready to transition him to the dangerous world of practical magic. What legendary powers will Ian unleash as he finally steps out of the classroom and into the untamed world of magic? Falling headfirst from the sky, Ian screams in absolute terror as his training begins. He frantically yells to his master, begging her to slow down this insane pace. Plunging downward, Ian complains that years of studying only taught him an ancient language. Eridus calmly watches from the ground as her student desperately cries for help. From below, she yells back, commanding him to listen closely for the elemental voices. Ian is utterly baffled by the instruction, questioning what voices he could possibly hear. He grows increasingly frustrated, wondering what could speak to him in the open air. Suddenly, glowing wind spirits gather around him, marveling at the flying human in their midst. Realizing the connection, Ian speaks the ancient tongue and begins to commune with the wind. The system immediately rewards his breakthrough, confirming he has unlocked Wen magic. Floating safely, a deep realization about the true source of magic washes over him. Back on the ground, a disheveled Ian grumbles as Eridus playfully mocks his chaotic landing. He contemplates how true sorcerers must borrow their strength directly from the natural world. Eridus smiles warmly, confirming that this divine link to nature is the essence of magic. Ian repeats the word in awe, fully captivated by the wonders of his new path. She instructs him to prepare himself, as he must now seek out the next elemental voice. Brimming with confidence, the young apprentice eagerly accepts his master's next challenge. Eridus instantly plunges him into his next trial, initiating his water magic training with a massive splash. Submerged with a snorkel, Ian tries to commune with a grumpy water spirit that demands he leave. Without a moment's rest, Eridus points him toward the freezing ordeal of ice magic. The biting frost speaks to him, warning that his body is quickly freezing. Ian shivers violently, trapped inside a wooden tub atop a brutal, snow-covered peak. Though he collapses from sheer exhaustion, Eridus praises his remarkably fast mastery of the elements. With a quick snap of her fingers, she instantly summons a roaring pillar of flame. Terribly startled by the sudden blaze, a panicked Ian screams out to his intense master. Mischievous fire spirits dance in the flames, playfully wondering if they should burn him alive. His eyes widen in pure terror as the destructive force of fire reflects in his gaze. The training shifts once more, plunging him into the heavy silence of a dark cavern. Holding a simple stick, Ian wonders if earth magic will be his final elemental hurdle. A mysterious voice echoes through the cave, delivering a cryptic riddle about the earth's flow. Utterly baffled by the riddle, Chibi Ian wonders if the earth is speaking an alien language. The voice of his master ponders if the boy simply lacks an aptitude for earth magic. A surge of magical energy strikes the cave floor, suggesting he needs training elsewhere. Fortunately, a timely system notification appears, granting him 10 bonus skill points. Feeling incredibly lucky, he realizes his system makes him a total cheat player in this world. Unable to understand the Earth's cryptic voice, Ian decides to manually level up his magic. He unleashes a brilliant wave of raw power, raising his Earth magic level. Instantly, the molten depths of the Earth warn him of dangerous lava flowing beneath his feet. Hearing the spirit's clear warning, Ian finally understands the true essence of Earth magic. Eager to reported success, he decides to head back and find his master. With a simple command, Ian conjures a small flame to light his wooden torch. As he walks, a nearby spirit of darkness complains about the sudden bright light. Startled by the voice, Ian turns around and wonders who is speaking to him. Two glowing eyes peer from the pitch-black void, beginning to introduce itself. The ancient entity dramatically reveals itself as the very embodiment of the darkness. Night falls over the rocky cliffs as a brilliant full moon lights up the sky. Under the moonlight, Eridus sits on the rocks, planning her attendance at a sorcerer conference. Ian excitedly runs up to her, calling out to get her attention. Eridus greets him with a proud smile, thrilled to see him return safely. With a smug grin, Ian boasts that he successfully learned darkness magic from the darkness itself. Eridus stares in complete shock, completely blindsided by his unbelievable announcement. Ian stands tall, leaving his master questioning if he truly communed with the elements. Eridus can hardly believe he managed to connect with the famously elusive entity of darkness. Sensing her sudden hesitation, Ian asks his master if everything is all right. Eridus calls out to Ian, preparing him for the next step of his journey. She decisively announces that it is finally time for them to descend the mountain. Eager to continue his training, Ian asks where their next destination will be. Eridus delivers a shocking blow, calmly explaining that they must part ways right here. She directs him toward a nearby town to attend a prestigious conference. Eridus warmly encourages him, believing he is destined to master space-time magic there. The sudden mention of such legendary magic leaves Ian completely bewildered. Eridus playfully pats his head, treating the legendary magic like a simple game. She silently notes Ian's incredible natural talent for the mystic arts. A deep premonition assures her that Ian will easily conquer the power of time itself. Blushing from the praise, Ian sheepishly processes his master's high expectations. Night falls over the quiet mountain as the moment of departure arrives. Eridus bids him farewell, promising to reunite in 3 years' time. A new dawn breaks, marking the start of Ian's solo journey. Birds chirp over a bustling town, welcoming the young mage to civilization. The sunset casts a warm glow over the rustic wooden buildings. A lively market square hums with merchants and travelers. Cloaked in blue, Ian blends into the busy crowd as he explores the town. He quietly reflects on his master's wild, unpredictable nature. A nearby trader shouts for any travelers heading towards the dangerous north. Sensing an opportunity, Ian decides to join the expedition. Under the starry night, the travel party gathers around a warm campfire. Ian quietly enjoys a bowl of warm soup, keeping a low profile. The friendly merchant leader, Leek, strikes up a conversation with him. Leek asks if he's aware of legendary dangers Lakanayad. A mystical illustration depicts the terrifying myths surrounding Dragon Mountain. A deep dread hangs in the air as Leek describes the mountain's history. He warns that a real, colossal drake rules the peak with absolute power. The dark legend of the beast sends a chill through the campfire. Leek throws an arm around Ian, questioning his combat skills and speed. Deeming Ian completely helpless, Leek asks what his profession is. Ian sheepishly reveals that he is actually a wizard. The confession instantly freezes Leek in pure unadulterated shock. Nearby, a mysterious hooded traveler quietly listens to the unfolding conversation. Glowing golden eyes flash from beneath the dark hood, locking onto Ian. The rough mercenaries burst into hysterical laughter at Ian's claim. Ian sweats nervously as a tense, mocking atmosphere settles over the camp. Terrified of offending a potential mage, Leek frantically tries to appease Ian. Ian watches in disbelief as the merchant excessively caters to the arrogant mercenaries. Ian realizes that society's perception of wizards is vastly different from reality. The mercenaries continue to laugh, completely dismissing his magic as a joke. They mockingly compare him to a weak stray dog. The mysterious hooded girl suddenly approaches Ian from behind. She whispers a sharp piece of advice, urging him to humble the loudmouth mercenaries. Sitting beside him, she warns that people will walk all over anyone who seems meek. As the mercenaries continue to laugh, she encourages Ian to unleash his true, terrifying power. Leaning in close, Kathy promises Ian that showing his power will secure the mercenaries' absolute protection. Left utterly speechless by her intense advice, Ian can only stare in stunned silence. Ian quietly admits she is right, wondering how she saw through his usually calm demeanor. Meanwhile, a nearby mercenary begins a bizarre and stomach-churning ritual with their dinnerware. In a stomach-turning display, the mercenary spits directly into the bowl and wipes it with a dirty leaf. A wave of absolute disgust washes over Ian as he realizes his plate was just contaminated with spit. Suddenly, a violent tremor rocks the campsite, sending the offending mercenary into a panic. The trembling mercenary looks up, freezing instantly as a terrifying, menacing voice calls him out. Towering over the soldier with demonic rage, Ian furiously demands an explanation for the spit shine. Faced with the terrifying aura of an angry mage, the mercenary can only stutter in paralyzed fear. Dropping to his knees, the terrified soldier desperately grovels and begs the powerful wizard for mercy. The groveling soldier whimpers his ridiculous defense, claiming he was just trying to polish the dish. Ian furiously screams at him to use water, but the soldier genuinely argues that water is far too dirty. Stunned by this unthinkable logic, Ian's brain short-circuits as he tries to process the bizarre statement. The mercenary explains that river water is packed with deadly parasites and mud, rendering it utterly useless for cleaning. Ian's mind is completely shattered as he hears the absurd claim that saliva is actually the cleaner option. Under the glowing full moon, the horrific reality of medieval hygiene standards echoes endlessly through his mind. Muttering to his comrade, the mercenary walks away, completely baffled by the wizard's weird obsession with water. As the soldier tries to snap him out of it, Ian silently screams at the utterly wild medieval standards. Pushed past his limit, Ian chants an ancient spell, unleashing a towering pillar of roaring flame. The sudden violent burst of high-tier magic sends the surrounding mercenaries stumbling backward in pure terror. Watching from the shadows, Kathy is left completely stunned by the raw, untamed power Ian just unleashed. With a cold, menacing gaze, the young mage commands them to go fetch some actual water immediately. Exploding with rage, Ian chases the terrified mercenaries out of the camp, screaming at their filthy hygiene habits. Quiet returns to the camp under the starry night sky as the dust of the chaotic confrontation settles. Deep in the darkened forest, a sinister search party of armored soldiers tracks Kathy's footprints. A creepy soldier blushes with malicious intent, plotting to corner Kathy and keep her all to himself. The search party finally spots their target, but she is already surrounded by a group of hostile figures. Completely oblivious to the danger, the creepy soldier happily waves and calls out for Kathy to join him. His cheerful smile instantly evaporates, replaced by a cold dread as he finally registers the terrifying scene. A masked assassin holding the captured girl turns around, surprised by the sudden, unwanted interruption. Shocked to find armed intruders holding their target, the soldiers demand to know who they are. Without a single word, an assassin ruthlessly stabs a soldier, sparking an immediate scream of vengeful fury. The assassins charge forward to slaughter the remaining soldiers, dismissing them as mere weaklings. Dangling helplessly upside down, Kathy's golden eyes widen in sheer terror as the brutal skirmish erupts. Refusing to go down without a fight, Kathy sinks her teeth deep into her captor's shoulder. The agonizing bite forces the masked assassin to lose his grip, sending Kathy tumbling to the ground. Hitting the dirt hard, Kathy quickly rolls away from the assassin's reach, seizing her chance to escape. As Kathy bolts into the dark woods, the furious assassin leader screams for his men to hunt her down. Back at the campsite, Ian is fast asleep inside his tent, completely unaware of the unfolding chaos. Even in his deep slumber, Ian groans in distress, still tormented by nightmares of spit-clean plates. Suddenly, glowing nature spirits materialize in his tent, frantically whispering warnings that hostile humans are approaching. The spirits swirl around him in panic, urging the young mage to wake up before it is too late. Fully awake, Ian sits on his cot, instantly sensing a dark, bloodthirsty presence looming outside. A desperate cry for help echoes from outside, calling out for the master mage. Leek bursts into the tent in a complete panic, frantically warning Ian that disaster has struck. Outside, the peaceful night is shattered as the metallic clashing of a brutal battle echoes under the moonlight. In the dark woods, the Merchant's Guard mercenaries engage in a desperate, bloody struggle against the masked assassins. The assassins prove far too swift and ruthless, slicing through the guards with lethal precision. Stepping brutally on a fallen guard, the cold-blooded assassin leader orders his men to slaughter every last witness. Standing triumphantly over a fallen guard, the ruthless lead assassin commands his men to find the woman. Deep in the darkened forest, Kathy desperately hides behind a massive tree as armed assassins search nearby. Crouching in sheer terror, Kathy clutches her head, frantically wondering what she should do before she gets caught. Suddenly, the cold steel of a sword tip slices down right in front of her face. A smug soldier corners her with a glowing blade, mocking that she was here all along. Grinning maliciously, the soldier demands she get up this instant or he will cut her arms off. Tears of despair fill Kathy's golden eyes as she silently laments that it is all over now. The cruel soldier ruthlessly raises his glowing sword, ready to strike down his helpless prey. Farther away, a sharp blue eye narrows in intense concentration as the magic prepares to strike. A sudden violent shockwave erupts with a deafening blast, throwing the smug soldier backward in pure agony. Walking through the swirling winds, Ian arrives just in time as Kathy looks up, another shock. Seeing her savior, Kathy's gaze shifts to the surviving merchants as they hold on to each other in fear. Turning back with a reassuring smile, Ian commands her to stay close and follow him. Sensing a true glimmer of hope, Kathy silently nods her head in agreement. Under the cover of the dark forest, the terrified survivors form a tight line behind the young mage. Leek calls out to the wizard, informing him that they are finally ready. Ian turns his head back, acknowledging them with a cold focus and announcing they should begin. Whispering into the dark night sky, Ian casts his spell to summon the darkness. Roaring black clouds and chaotic blue lightning violently swirl as Ian unleashes a massive dark spell. Plunged into complete pitch blackness, the confused assassins look around, desperately asking what this is. Blinded by the magical dark fog, the frantic soldiers shout to light the torches quickly. The assassins stumble around blindly in the void, shouting chaotic directions and confusing each other in the dark. With his Shadow Art's dark vision activated to see in total darkness, Ian leads the way forward. Suddenly, a torchlight pierces the dark as a startled soldier spots them, sending the survivors into a panic. The soldier raises his sword, demanding where they think they are running, as the terrified merchant begs for mercy. With a cold, calculated glare, Ian unleashes his next element, commanding the fire to burn his enemy. The soldier screams in agony as he is instantly engulfed in a roaring pillar of flame. Charred and defeated, the lifeless soldier collapses heavily onto the dirt as the flames flicker out. Watching the horrific display from the shadows, the remaining assassins freeze in absolute paralyzing terror. Staring back with an icy, merciless expression, Ian hopes this brutal display will scare them into running away. A frantic assassin screams that there is a mage over there, ordering everyone to charge forward. The charging assassin stops dead in his tracks, utterly bewildered as a colossal beast looms directly in front of him. A blood-curdling scream of pure agony echoes through the crimson-stained darkness. The remaining masked assassins look on in complete jaw-dropping horror at the nightmare unfolding before them. Sensing the massive, overwhelming threat, Ian gasps in utter shock as he looks upon the beast. A colossal red-scaled drake with glowing eyes looms over the forest, leaving Ian completely speechless. The towering predator ruthlessly crushes an assassin in its massive jaws as the others grunt in pain. The legendary drake rampages through the dark forest, mercilessly tearing the fleeing assassins to pieces. Huddling tightly behind Ian, the terrified merchants whimper that a massive dragon has appeared. Ian sweats nervously, realizing they are completely done for if the massive drake turns on them next. Suddenly, a glowing system notification appears, announcing that Ian has witnessed a primeval mystery. Looking at the massive beast, Ian is left completely baffled, wondering if this is summoning arts. Staring at the system window, Ian cannot believe his eyes that even the legendary drake is a mystery. He remembers falling through the sky, drowning in the ocean, and being frozen in the snowy mountains, wondering if it's the same mystery. Clutching the ancient grimoire at his side, Ian realizes what he must do if that is indeed the case. The blood-stained drake slowly turns its colossal head, locking its predatory gaze directly onto the young wizard. The terrified merchants tremble and whimper behind their protector, paralyzed by the drake's overwhelming presence. The giant predator unleashes a low, menacing growl, preparing to strike down the remaining survivors. Resolving his fears, Ian gathers his magical aura, determined to face the beast since the mystery never betrayed him. Standing tall against the legendary dragon, the young mage proudly declares his true identity as a master wizard. Facing down a legendary beast, the desperate young wizard makes a shocking gamble by claiming they are actually friends. Desperately trying to pacify the irritated dragon, Ian holds up a sign pleading for peaceful coexistence instead of violence. The massive predator is completely unimpressed, unleashing a low, terrifying growl that vibrates through the forest. Behind him, the confused merchants whisper in hushed voices, wondering what madness the young mage is trying to pull. Ian stands his ground, trying his best to maintain a calm and completely unbothered composure. But internally, the young wizard is completely losing his mind as he frantically panics over what the monster is saying. Suddenly, a glowing system notification appears, urging him to allocate his points to raise his skill levels. Acting on pure survival instinct, Ian quickly decides to dump all his accumulated points directly into his summoning arts. Instantly, his senses undergo a bizarre transformation as a mysterious deep voice finally becomes clear to his ears. Gathering his resolve, the young mage politely addresses the colossal drake in an attempt to open up diplomatic channels. The giant beast roars in irritation, violently demanding that the tiny humans speak up if they have something to say. Shaken to his core by the deafening blast of wind, Ian struggles to keep his footing while the survivors cower in terror. Regaining his posture, Ian coughs politely to clear his throat before beginning his high-stakes negotiation. With a polite bow, the young mage explains to the giant dragon that they have absolutely no intention of fighting him. Speaking directly into their minds, the proud drake scoffs at their weakness while Ian cleverly plays along to make them seem beneath his notice. Overhearing the silent exchange, the sweating merchants exchange confused looks, wondering if the wizard is actually using telepathy. Kathy watches the tense standoff in breathless silence, placing all her trust in her mysterious savior. Completely satisfied by Ian's submissive logic, the massive drake proudly declares that killing such weaklings is not worth his effort. Seeing his psychological tactics hit the mark, a subtle, victorious smile spreads across the young wizard's face. But the fleeting moment of relief instantly evaporates as a dark shadow falls over them once more. Looming dangerously close, the titanic dragon warns them that he is still in an extremely foul mood. Crushed by the overwhelming pressure of the beast's anger, the terrified merchants collapse to the ground in tears. Ian grits his teeth in sheer frustration, realizing that his peaceful bluff is rapidly falling apart. Despair begins to take hold as the young mage frantically searches his mind for any way to escape this deadly corner. Sensing the beast is ready to strike, Ian prepares himself to launch a desperate, all-out frontal assault. The ancient predator narrows his glowing eyes, locking his predatory gaze onto his helpless prey. Refusing to back down, Ian boldly questions why the great dragon is in such a bad mood, only to receive a cold defensive retort. Rather than fleeing, Ian calmly offers to help solve whatever problem is currently troubling the giant beast. The colossal drake laughs at his sheer arrogance, questioning what a mere, fragile human could possibly do for him. Keeping a calm, knowing expression, the young wizard prepares to unveil his secret magical prowess. Quiet descends on the darkened forest as a powerful aura begins to surge from the young mage's body. Kathy and the terrified merchants look up in absolute awe as a brilliant light begins to illuminate the pitch-black woods. The colossal drake pauses, looking down in genuine surprise at the sudden, immense fluctuation of mana. Standing at the center of a swirling vortex of wind and light, Ian unleashes a dazzling display of high-tier magic. Intrigued by this unexpected show of raw power, the ancient predator gazes at the young wizard with newfound respect. Embracing his true identity, Ian introduces himself as a humble mage seeking the mysteries of the world, offering his unique skills to the dragon. The legendary drake studies him intently, considering the potential of the human standing before him. Surrounded by a brilliant, surging aura of magical wind, Ian confidently declares that their true negotiation has officially begun. A powerful gust of wind rustles the trees as the immense magical pressure slowly begins to settle. Under the glowing full moon, the oppressive aura of bloodlust completely vanishes, signaling that the beast has accepted the challenge. Breathing a massive sigh of relief, Ian celebrates surviving the immediate crisis while preparing to seize complete control. Confident in his ultimate survival, the young wizard resolves not to let the ancient dragon dictate the terms of their due. Suddenly, a profound memory flashes through Ian's mind, echoing the voice of his past mentor. He remembers his wise teacher explaining that true magical power requires deep communication and mutual understanding with the ancient mysteries. Looking back at his days of study, Ian recalls the lesson that building a strong relationship with magical entities is a wizard's greatest weapon. The memory of his mentor's guidance reminds him that each mystery has a unique personality that must be befriended or managed. The ultimate rule of magic echoes in his mind, declaring that the art of living and adapting is a wizard's most important skill. Armed with this brilliant realization, a devious, scheming smirk spreads across Ian's face as he prepares to manipulate the giant beast. Calling upon his magical capabilities once more, Ian summons his interactive status interface to find the perfect tool. With a triumphant grin, the young wizard points to the glowing screen, confident that he has just unlocked the ultimate way to tame the dragon. Determined to survive, Ian activates his analytical vision to seek out a hidden weakness in the massive beast. His system interface suddenly flickers to life, advising him to feed the giant predator highly potent alcohol based on its massive size. The mysterious system window flashes again, preparing to reveal the next crucial phase of his high-stakes survival plan. Sweating profusely, Ian is left completely dumbfounded as the system commands him to profusely flatter the dangerous monster next. Plunged into a state of absolute disbelief, the young mage scrambles to make sense of these bizarre tactical instructions. Dropping to his knees, Ian despairingly laments his introverted nature while the colossal drake looks down in utter confusion. Realizing his life is on the line, Ian resolves to win over the ancient predator's heart to achieve a massive breakthrough. The towering dragon tilts its head, demanding to know what the puny human wizard has to say for himself. Stepping forward, the young wizard politely asks if he may present a special offering directly to the magnificent beast. Intrigued by the gesture, the proud drake barks out an order for the fragile human to bring forth his offering. With his heart pounding, Ian turns to the terrified gray-haired merchant, Leek, urgently calling him forward. Feeling the immense pressure of the ticking clock, Ian frantically commands his companion to make haste. Leek quickly unloads a wooden crate packed with various glass bottles of strong liquor and wooden mugs. Looming over the crate, the massive dragon immediately grumbles in disappointment, deeming the human offering incredibly stingy. Panicking internally, Ian desperately tries to smooth things over by claiming that high-quality human alcohol only comes in tiny quantities. Wasting no time, the young mage carefully pours the glowing amber liquid into a large wooden tankard. With a polite, welcoming gesture, Ian presents the freshly poured mug of strong spirits directly to the towering predator. The massive drake winces and turns up his nose, immediately repulsed by the harsh, stinging scent of the human alcohol. Suddenly, a terrifying crimson aura flares as the furious dragon menacingly accuses the young wizard of plotting something wicked. Desperately trying to diffuse the deadly tension, Ian nervously offers to drink the strong spirit first to prove its safety. Under the watchful, menacing gaze of the beast, the brave mage chugs the potent drink straight from the heavy wooden mug. Behind him, the terrified merchants watch in absolute wide-eyed horror, praying their savior doesn't drop dead. Swaying on his feet with double vision, Ian heavily slurs his words while struggling to handle the incredibly strong liquor. Unimpressed but curious, the colossal dragon cautiously dips one of his massive claws directly into the mug to inspect it. Staring at his own reflection in the liquid, the ancient predator listens as Ian encourages him to take a sip. Gently pinching the tiny wooden mug with his giant claws, the massive beast carefully raises the drink to his snout. With a sudden, surprising flick of his tongue, the great dragon takes his first cautious taste of the human alcohol. Nearby, the sweating merchants clasp their hands together in desperate prayer, knowing their lives hang entirely on this single moment. Flapping his heavy jaws, the massive drake gulps down the liquor as a faint, unexpected warmth flushes through his face. Resting his heavy chin in his claw, the dragon casually dismisses the drink as mediocre, though Ian eagerly awaits his true reaction. Ian's eye widens in pure shock, realizing his high-stakes gamble might have just completely failed to win the beast over. Thinking fast, the clever wizard pours an even stronger vintage, warmly inviting the great dragon to try another round. As the glowing full moon slowly climbs higher into the night sky, a bizarre drinking session begins deep in the forest. Gulping down mug after mug of the premium alcohol, the massive dragon's cheeks flush a deep, heavy red. The proud predator happily declares his delight while Ian wipes away his sweat, relieved that his plan is finally working. But his relief turns to dread as he gazes upon a pile of empty barrels, realizing the beast has an impossibly high tolerance. Giving a deadpan thumbs up, Ian is completely speechless as the heavily flushed crown drake reveals himself to be an absolute heavyweight. Realizing his grand plan to escape while the monster slept is failing, Ian's mind begins to spiral into frantic panic once more. Staring helplessly into his empty wooden tankard, Ian's sweat drops in despair, realizing they have completely run out of alcohol. Suddenly, the massive dragon breaks the tense silence, startling the young wizard by bringing up Ian's earlier question. Trembling slightly, Ian carefully confirms his curiosity, wondering what the ancient beast is about to reveal to him. To Ian's utter bewilderment, the massive predator suddenly tears up, showing a completely unexpected, deeply emotional side. Under the starry night, the emotional drake begins to lament his poor living conditions in his cramped, low-quality nest. Recalling a tender memory of his pink dragon lover, the weeping beast explains her sweet devotion, leaving Ian entirely speechless. A heavy tear trickles down the colossal dragon's face as he reflects on his tragic, heartbreaking love life. Listening intently to the bizarre sob story, Ian watches as the ancient predator details how others mocked his beloved partner. Looking utterly miserable, the weeping dragon confesses that his own deep insecurities eventually forced him to make a painful choice. The heartbroken drake roars his grief to the sky, confessing he initiated a breakup, while the terrified merchants faint from the sheer noise. The giant beast wails in agonizing sorrow, sending shockwaves through the woods as the merchants' souls literally escape their bodies. Looking on with a deeply sympathetic expression, Ian realizes that even a legendary, terrifying dragon suffers from the exact same heartbreak as any human. Realizing he holds a hidden card, Ian resolves to turn this terrifying situation completely to his advantage. Calling out to the massive beast, Ian catches the mighty drake completely off guard with a sudden shout. Stepping forward with absolute confidence, the young mage boldly offers to rebuild the dragon's ruined nest. The colossal predator is left utterly speechless, weeping tears of surprise at this unexpected, generous proposal. Wearing a devious, calculating grin, the clever wizard prepares to state his high-stakes terms for the exchange. Standing tall beneath the glowing full moon, Ian confidently asks the ancient beast to grant him a single favor. High above the majestic mountains, a powerful quote on unity highlights the dawn of a legendary new alliance. Shifting back to the lush forest, Ian stands in quiet reflection as the intense night finally turns to day. Nearby, the old gray-haired merchant Leek lies fast asleep, murmuring sweet, half-conscious dreams in his peaceful slumber. With a deadpan expression, the young mage pokes the blushing, dreaming merchant to snap him back to reality. An anger vein dramatically pops on Ian's forehead as his patience with the sleeping merchant instantly evaporates. Glaring down with terrifying intensity, the dark-haired wizard fiercely threatens to rip the old merchant's fingers off if he doesn't wake up. Exuding a dark, menacing aura, Ian terrifies the old merchant with his brutally cold and impatient stare. Shouting in absolute panic, Leek bolts upright in terror while his companion watches his sudden outburst in confusion. Kathy and Leek tumble out of the wooden cart, crashing onto the grassy ground with heavy grunts of pain. Clutched in agonizing confusion, the purple-haired girl Kathy rubs her aching head alongside the groaning gray-haired merchant. In a hilarious chibi scene, Leek realizes Ian literally dragged their heavy cart and sleeping bodies all by himself. Sweating in sheer annoyance, Ian grumbles internally about having to haul the fainted, useless merchants back to safety. Kathy anxiously asks if the dragon returned home, but the young wizard reveals the beast is waiting nearby. The terrified merchants cling to each other in absolute horror, dreading whether they are about to become monster food. Keeping his cool, the dark-haired mage reassures them that he negotiated a deal to guarantee their safe release. Kathy's eyes widen in stunned disbelief, struggling to comprehend how a mere human negotiated with a legendary beast. The teary-eyed merchants shower Ian with dramatic praise, leaving the young wizard sweating over their exaggerated gratitude. A brief memory flashes back, showing Ian presenting his proposal to rebuild the dragon's nest in exchange for their lives. Overwhelmed with worship, the energetic gray-haired merchant proudly yells Ian's grand name to the heavens. Taken completely by surprise, the young wizard recoils in horror as a bizarre, glowing song of praise suddenly manifests. A highly embellished, cringe-inducing scroll appears, melodramatically singing of how Ian single-handedly conquered the raging drake. Floating red and white text boxes continue to exaggerate the tale, praising the wizard's incredible boldness. The dramatic fantasy scroll depicts Ian playfully dominating the submissive dragon, highlighting his supposed absolute authority. Tears of pure adoration stream down the merchants' faces as they celebrate their savior's ultimate triumph. Striking a dramatic pose, the merchants swear their eternal loyalty to Ian, leaving the wizard completely dumbfounded. Trying to escape the embarrassing display, Ian sternly commands the group to prepare for departure before he returns. The merchants eagerly salute in perfect unison, assuring their savior that they are completely united in purpose. Turning her attention back to business, Kathy suggests checking the status of their mercenaries while Leek gasps. Kathy glances back with a sharp, highly suspicious glare, hinting at a hidden agenda or deep mistrust. Slipping away into the dense forest shadows, the mysterious girl Kathy walks toward an unknown destination. The scene shifts to the dark, cavernous depths of the dragon's nest, echoing with faint, ominous sounds. Entering the massive, gloomy cavern, the young wizard gasps in awe at the sheer size of the dragon's home. The colossal drake roars defensively, warning Ian that it is far too late to back out of their agreement. Feeling his physical stamina dangerously plummet, a deeply exhausted Ian sighs as his energy drains rapidly. Determined to get some rest, a weary chibi Ian analyzes the cramped cave, planning how to magically expand it. Closing his eyes and focusing his mind, the young wizard prepares to channel his ancient magical arts. With a serious expression, Ian begins to chant, calling out to the primordial spirit of the earth. A massive glowing golden entity suddenly materializes in the dark cave, demanding to know why the humans summoned it. Standing before the towering spirit, Ian politely asks for a favor, only to be coldly rejected by the busy entity. Sweating profusely, a defeated Ian returns to the waiting dragon and confesses that the stubborn earth spirit refused him. Looking utterly exhausted, the young wizard worries that another attempt will only provoke the spirit's fierce wrath. To his utter shock, the massive predator calmly accepts the failure, showing a surprisingly understanding and gentle side. Ian freezes in pure bewilderment, completely taken aback by the terrifying beast's sudden, peaceful change of heart. The mighty drake sadly laments his lost love, warmly thanking the young human for trying his absolute best to help. Standing before the mighty dragon, Ian silently contemplates his next move as a legendary bond begins to form. Looking down at the young human, the massive dragon demands to know his identity, to which the dark-haired wizard introduces himself as Ian Meredith Raven. Introducing himself as Drake Longtail, the giant beast warmly offers to become the young wizard's friend. Expressing his mutual respect, Ian gently clasps the mighty beast's claw to seal their newfound friendship. As they shake hands, a glowing system notification appears, announcing that Ian has successfully unlocked a powerful new summoning skill to call upon Drake whenever he needs help. Despite gaining an incredibly rare skill, Ian feels a wave of guilt, desperately wishing he could do more to help his new friend. Looking down at his new ally, the massive dragon calls out Ian's name to catch his attention. Seeking to celebrate their bond, Drake proudly presents an overwhelming pile of treasure, inviting the stunned wizard to choose whatever he wants. Staring at the glittering hoard, Ian recalls his master's teachings about a dragon's natural instinct to collect shiny, precious jewels. Holding a giant shimmering gemstone, Ian laments that this flawless treasure would have easily bought the stubborn Earth Spirit's cooperation. Suddenly, a brilliant spark of inspiration flashes in Ian's eyes as a daring new plan takes root in his mind. Turning to the colossal beast, Ian politely asks Drake for permission to draw on the cavern floor. Tilting his head in complete confusion, the dragon curiously wonders what kind of scribbling the human intends to do. Kneeling down, Ian places the colossal jewel in the center of a massive, intricate magic circle carved into the dirt. Smirking confidently, Ian remembers the secret summoning method his master once taught him for pacifying stubborn spirits. A powerful magic circle begins to glow brightly, driven by the logic that a sulking spirit can easily be bribed with a spectacular gift. When the curious dragon questions his strange actions, Ian tells him to sit back and watch the magic unfold. Channeling his magic, Ian confidently calls out to the primordial earth spirit once more. The summoned earth spirit questions the interruption, but quickly shifts her tone as Ian commands her to smooth the cave walls and clear the rubble. Accepting the sparkling gemstone bribe, the magic circle erupts in a blinding, brilliant blue light. Massive shockwaves rip through the cavern as ancient earth magic violently reshapes the rocky ceiling. The dark, claustrophobic cave splits wide open, exposing the underground nest to the beautiful bright sky above. The massive dragon looks up in absolute shock, utterly speechless at the dramatic transformation. Drake's golden eye dilates with awe as he gazes upon the breathtaking sunlit sanctuary unfolding before him. Shaking with disbelief, the legendary beast struggles to comprehend that this magnificent place is his actual home. High columns, grand architecture, and soaring birds decorate the spectacular new nest as Ian proudly presents it as his gift. Looking like an emotional, blushing chibi, Drake is overwhelmed with joy, while Ian sweat drops, anticipating a massive, tearful reaction. Utterly captivated by the wide, beautiful sanctuary, the happy beast basking in the warm sun notes how incredibly sweet it smells. Drake enthusiastically asks if the delightful scent is also a product of magic, but Ian flatly denies it. Squeezing the young wizard in an aggressive embrace, the ecstatic dragon tearfully rejoices that he can now proudly invite his lover back to raise their future children, leaving a crushed Ian regretting his choice. Straining under the immense physical pressure, a heavily sweating Ian tries to stay positive while his stamina completely bottoms out. Suddenly losing his footing, Ian stumbles backward as his vision begins to blur, deeply alarmed by his body's sudden collapse. Staring at his bloodstained hand, the young wizard gasps in horror as a severe backlash from the high-tier spell takes its toll. Realizing his human friend is spitting up blood, Drake panics in sheer terror, desperately asking if he is okay. As the severe exhaustion claims him, Ian blackouts and collapses onto the cold stone floor, leaving the dragon crying out his name in panic. Terrified of losing his savior, Drake desperately cradles Ian's limp body, screaming at the wizard to hang on. Shaking off the heavy exhaustion, a groaning Ian wakes up in frustration, wondering how he will handle this high-stakes mess. Drake's massive head snaps round as he senses someone approaching, roaring defensively to protect his resting friend. Charging straight into the dangerous cavern, Kathy rushes forward with a highly determined look on her face. Drake's eyes bulge in absolute comical disbelief at the sudden intrusion of another human. Kathy grinds to a sudden halt, her eyes widening in pure terror as she comes face to face with the legendary beast. Under the towering pillars of the transformed nest, the brave girl stands defiantly before the massive dragon cradling the unconscious wizard. Gently holding the sleeping human, the protective beast shields Ian from the newcomer. Exuding a highly menacing aura, Drake glares down with glowing yellow eyes, warning the intruder with a fierce growl. Terrified but resolute, Kathy frantically waves her hands, desperately begging the raging beast to listen to her. Raising her arms in a frantic surrender, Kathy loudly explains that she is Ian's close friend and begs the dragon not to eat her. Striking an adorable chibi pose, the purple-haired merchant makes a giant OK sign over her head to confirm their peaceful alliance. The fierce predator instantly softens, looking thoroughly puzzled at the mention of her being Ian's friend. Sweating nervously, Kathy groans in relief as the massive beast tilts his giant head to inspect her. As the tension finally diffuses, the young wizard remains fast asleep, completely resting his weary body after his exhausting magical feat. A quiet moonlit night masks the chaotic truth of what just transpired as a single candle flickers in the dark. Slowly stirring from a deep unconsciousness, the young wizard groans as his senses gradually return to him. Still half asleep, the groggy boy reaches out instinctively to find his beloved smartphone. Instead of smooth glass, his fingers grasp onto a surprisingly warm and delicate hand. Confused by the bizarre gummy texture, he sleepily wonders if his phone magically transformed into candy. He gently squeezes the soft fingers, marveling at how much they feel like a squishy cat paw. His peaceful morning delusion is instantly shattered when a sudden, familiar voice asks if he is finally awake. Bolting awake, the wizard realizes he is resting comfortably on the purple-haired girl's lap. Panicking, he scrambles backward and demands to know why she is suddenly here. Still dazed, he tries to process his bizarre dream about watching phone videos. The purple-haired girl looks on in confusion as the disoriented wizard struggles to gather his thoughts. Clutching his throbbing head, the young wizard finally remembers passing out from magical exhaustion. He laments overusing his power to force his summoning magic level up just to communicate with the giant Drake. Sensing his inner turmoil, the girl watches him with silent concern and confusion. Overwhelmed with utter mortification, the wizard covers his face, desperately hoping she didn't witness his embarrassing collapse. Trying to change the subject, he asks about the dragon's whereabouts, only to learn Drake left abruptly. He privately assumes the romantic Drake rushed off to see his beloved, keeping the amusing theory to himself. The girl apologizes for the intrusion, but the wizard quickly assures her that he is perfectly fine. Curious, he asks how she managed to bypass the protective dragon, and she reveals she claimed to be his friend. He is deeply skeptical, questioning how she could have communicated that concept in the ancient dragon language. Sleepy and baffled, he jokingly wonders if she somehow used machine translation to talk to the beast. A heavy nervous silence falls over the girl as she hesitates to speak her mind. Stealing her resolve, the purple-haired girl seriously requests to ask the young wizard a crucial question. She brings up the terrifying bandit attack from the previous night, her expression turning somber. To his surprise, she confesses that the entire dangerous ambush was actually her fault. Bowing her head in deep remorse, she apologizes for dragging him into her chaotic mess. The young wizard feels the atmosphere instantly grow tense and heavy as her guilt fills the room. He recalls how terribly she was trembling in fear during the chaotic battle, understanding her deep trauma. Clearing her throat, the girl tries to compose herself before delivering a massive revelation. He bluntly asks if she was secretly working with the bandits to rob him, prompting an offended denial. When he playfully suggests she looks like a classic beautiful fantasy bandit, she reacts with silent disbelief. Turning dead serious, she leans in and confesses that her real identity is a heavily guarded secret. He internally scoffs, expecting her to make a ridiculously cliché claim of being a royal princess. Instead, she proudly declares her real name is Lucy of the noble Talion family. She drops a bombshell, explaining that the bandits were sent to abduct her on her own fiancé's orders. The young wizard is utterly stunned, struggling to comprehend the concept of her having a fiancé. He assumes it is a petty lover's quarrel, earning a highly annoyed glare from the noble girl. Lucy explains that she was actively running away to ensure her fiancé could never track her down. Recalling the terrifying near capture from yesterday, she admits she no longer has the confidence to flee alone. Desperate for survival, she grabs the wizard's arm, begging him for his aid. She frantically implores him to help her escape, catching the startled wizard completely off guard. He demands to know why she is running and if her fiancé did something truly horrific to her. Bowing her head, Lucy begins to explain the fragile political state of the Talion baronial house. She reveals that their lack of loyal knights left her family constantly vulnerable to hostile external forces. With a brutal territory war looming, her family faced absolute ruin and destruction. To save themselves, her family arranged a desperate betrothal between Lucy and a powerful mercenary captain. As the leader of the region's most influential mercenary group, his strength successfully deterred their enemies. At first, the mercenary captain seemed genuinely happy with his new noble status as a son-in-law. Lucy was initially relieved, smiling warmly as she believed her family was finally safe. But the peaceful illusion soon shattered as his ambitious fiancé began using his new noble power to exert tyrannical control. A shocking story of betrayal begins as Lucy describes her unfaithful, power-hungry fiancé. Enraged by his infidelity, her parents step in to demand an official annulment. But the cold-hearted tyrant is determined to keep his power at any cost. In a horrifying twist, Lucy reveals her fiancé poisoned her parents to silence them. Ian is completely stunned by the sheer ruthlessness of her family's murderer. To protect his newly seized power, the villain eliminated everyone standing in his way. Hearing this political nightmare, Ian realizes the immense scale of the danger. The young wizard silently curses the smug, unhinged tyrant for his despicable crimes. Lucy explains that the villain has no legal claim to her family's assets without her. Determined to resist, she explains how she escaped to protect her lineage. She trembles with fear, knowing his relentless hunters will never stop pursuing her. Pleading with tearful eyes, she begs the young wizard to save her life. Ian carefully weighs the gravity of her tragic and highly dangerous situation. The terrifying shadow of her monstrous fiancé looms heavily over the helpless noble girl. Ian simply shakes his head, unable to comprehend such greed and cruelty. Desperate to survive, Lucy frantically promises him a grand reward for his aid. Highly skeptical, the cautious wizard questions why she would trust him so easily. She tearfully reasons that selling her out would only bring him worthless pocket change. Holding her breath, she waits in agonizing suspense for his final answer. Intrigued by her conviction, Ian asks what kind of reward she means. In an ultimate move of desperation, Lucy offers him her entire noble estate. A heavy, tense silence hangs over the dark room as her shocking offer echoes. Ian looks down thoughtfully, contemplating the sheer weight of this massive request. A wild realization strikes Ian as he considers the political power of marrying her. He envisions a path to vast nobility, but wonders if that is his true destiny. Staring into a magical mirror, Ian decides to focus on becoming a legendary wizard instead. He realizes protecting Lucy is the perfect high-stakes quest to level up his magic. Additionally, the grand quest will successfully fund his future magical journeys. With his mind made up, he resolves to handle the immediate threat first. Clearing his throat, the young wizard prepares to deliver his final answer. Ian initially hesitates, warning her that a wizard isn't a traditional blade-swinging bodyguard. Hearing his reluctance, Lucy's heart instantly sinks as tears fill her eyes again. Standing up tall, Ian grins and officially agrees to guide her to safety. Even with his strict boundary, a brilliant ray of hope shines in her eyes. Overcome with immense relief, the emotional noble girl bursts into dramatic tears. Utterly panicked, a sweating Ian frantically tries to calm the sobbing girl down. Gently reaching out, Lucy tightly grasps his hand as her true savior. Through heavy sobs of gratitude, she tearfully thanks him for choosing to help. Leaning forward, she buries her face in his chest, letting her fears go. Ian looks down in surprise, his heart softening for his fragile new companion. Under a warm, glowing light, the wizard gently comforts her to seal their alliance. The next morning, a bright sun rises over a beautiful, peaceful new day. Nearby, the legendary beast Drake lounges comically on a giant beach chair. Adjusting his sunglasses, the cool dragon spots his human friends approaching the sanctuary. Walking out together, Ian and Lucy are greeted warmly by the massive, sunbathing beast. Drake checks on Ian's recovery, unaware of his friend's amusement at his fresh tan. Looking up at the clear sky, the giant beast prepares for their journey ahead. Leaning close, Drake proudly thanks Ian for the magnificent gift of his new nest. Lowering his massive body, the kind dragon invites them to mount for a flight. Ian casually pats his giant friend, leaving a sweat-dropping Lucy utterly terrified of his power. A wave of deep confusion washes over Lucy as she tries to comprehend the unfolding situation. The mighty dragon Drake roars, ordering Lucy to climb onto his back alongside Ian. Ian quickly steps in to correct Drake, who looks back with comical surprise. Lucy remains completely bewildered, struggling to understand how they are communicating with a beast. Smiling reassuringly, the young wizard reaches out his hand to guide his companion. Ian warmly invites Lucy to climb onto the massive dragon's back. Stealing her resolve, Lucy takes his hand, accepting his guidance for the journey ahead. Mounted safely behind Ian, she holds on tight as they prepare to take flight. With a powerful burst of speed, Drake storms forward across the grassy fields. Startled birds scatter into the sunny sky as the trio officially begins their high-speed escape. Farther away, a group of travelers despairs upon realizing their mercenary guards have been wiped out. One of the merchants panics hysterically, convinced they are completely gone. Another traveler skeptically wonders if bandits would actually roam these woods. Distressed and terrified, the merchants point fingers and argue over who bears responsibility. The desperate crew turns to their leader, Lord Leek, pleading for a decision. Lord Leek clears his throat, preparing to deliver a commanding plan of action. His eyes snap open, filled with sudden resolve. He boldly declares they will stand their ground and wait for the wizard. The subordinates react with an amusing mix of dramatic shock and intense relief. They place their absolute faith in the young mage's unmatched power. Lord Leek smugly reassures them, completely unaware of the disaster looming 10 minutes later. Their confidence backfires spectacularly as the group is thoroughly beaten up and bound by bandits. The eye-patch-wearing bandit leader aggressively slaps them, ordering them to stop whining. Holding a cold blade to Lord Leek's neck, the bandit demands all their possessions. The ruthless leader demands they immediately hand over the mysterious girl in their group. He specifies he is hunting a stunning, dark bluish-haired woman. The battered travelers look up in complete confusion, trying to process his description. A sudden realization strikes them as they instantly visualize the beautiful Lucy. The bandit leader demands her location, leaving the captured men trembling in fear. The bandits search the nearby campsite, only to find an empty space where she once rested. A sinister grin spreads across the leader's face as he realizes she escaped. The terrified hostages squeeze together, weeping and begging the ruthless bandits for mercy. Suddenly, a massive, thunderous rumbling shakes the forest, drawing the bandits' attention. The battered merchants weep with pure joy, realizing their savior has finally arrived. The eye-patch leader sweat drops, stunned by the sheer size of the approaching threat. Drake charges straight into the clearing with Ian and Lucy riding victoriously on his back. Spotting the runaway noble girl, the bandit leader points her out to his men. Her subordinate sweat drops in absolute terror upon seeing the monstrous beast she is riding. Drake glares down at the trespassers with terrifying, glowing red eyes. Overwhelmed by primal fear, the bandit leader commands an immediate retreat. The chaotic battlefield briefly settles as a legendary warrior's shadow looms over the horizon. Sometime later, a peaceful sky shines down as Lord Leek expresses immense relief for Lucy's safety. Lord Leek praises the young wizard for successfully shielding her from the dangerous thugs. Distressed, the other merchants wonder how the bandits knew her secret identity. Mention of the Church of Tenjin instantly raises Ian's suspicions. Ian recalls that the Church of Tenjin is the most dominant and influential religion in their world. Though their holy doctrine strictly forbids slavery, greedy traffickers routinely ignore those rules. The young wizard silently notes that her powerful pursuers refuse to let her go. He privately wonders if her fiancé is truly that desperate to force a marriage. Sweat dropping, Ian realizes they must move fast before their persistent enemies catch their trail. To secure their ultimate escape, the young wizard makes a chilling request to his giant companion. Ian cold-bloodedly commands the beast to completely eliminate the pursuing enemies at all costs. The ferocious dragon happily accepts the lethal order, eager to protect his friend. With a thunderous burst of energy, the massive beast charges off to execute the target. Reflecting on the brutal reality of this fantasy world, Ian resolves to harden his heart for survival. Suddenly, a wave of intense physical pain washes over the young wizard. Ian clutches his head in agony, realizing he strained his mind speaking Draconic. Lucy voices her growing concern, but the stubborn mage quickly dismisses her worries. Although Lucy remains skeptical of his health, the merchant leader approaches them with absolute admiration. The merchant leader strikes a dramatic pose, deeply impressed by the wizard's incredible power. Reassuring his companion, the mage insists he is fully capable of continuing the journey. Together with the merchants, they resume their journey, traveling deeper into the dangerous forest. Suddenly, the young wizard's eyes snap open as he senses something from afar. A sudden system notification reveals his dragon has successfully wiped out 11 pursuers. Ian silently appreciates the immense convenience of his system's automatic combat reports. He summons his glowing holographic status screen, wishing it could appear directly before his eyes. His quiet focus is interrupted as the noble girl softly calls out his name. Far away, the dragon unleashes a devastating fire attack, entirely obliterating the remaining enemies. Expressing his deep gratitude, the wizard praises the loyal beast for his incredible assistance. Looking toward the horizon, the wizard sadly bids farewell to his powerful dragon friend. Ian laments that the dragon is bound to the mountain range, preventing future meetings. The two share a heartwarming final look, cementing their permanent bond of friendship. Before parting ways, the massive beast leans in to share one last crucial detail. Soon after, the carriage arrives at Riverville, a bustling and beautiful seaside town. Wandering through the town square, a legendary creature immediately catches the wizard's attention. Drake had revealed a rumor about an elusive ice phoenix dwelling in the northern mountains. This legendary immortal beast is renowned across the land as the Bird of Resurrection. These incredibly versatile beasts alter their elemental forms entirely based on their local environments. Known as highly adaptable monsters, their unique elemental variations make them extremely formidable. Excited by this discovery, Ian contemplates whether he can successfully bind one as his next summon. His daydreaming is cut short as the merchant leader eagerly runs back over to them. The merchant leader warmly invites the duo to accompany them to meet the local lord. Fearing political complications, the cautious wizard decides it is best to avoid the local nobility entirely. A well-meaning merchant grabs the disguised noble girl's hands, offering her a place to stay. Lucy freezes in surprise, unsure how to gracefully decline the merchant's sudden invitation. Stepping in smoothly, Ian wraps his arm around her and claims they are staying together. The sudden declaration of intimacy leaves the merchants completely dumbfounded and utterly scandalized. The noble girl's face instantly turns beet red at the wizard's surprisingly bold move. Quickly playing along, she leans affectionately against him and sighs about her exhaustion. Watching from a distance, the smug merchant leader smiles knowingly at their apparent romance. Completely misinterpreting the situation, he joyfully celebrates his theory that they are indeed a couple. Meanwhile, a mysterious noble gentleman in the crowd keeps a sharp eye on him. Once they are alone, Lucy admits that acting like his partner helps deter unwanted male attention. Curious, Lucy questions his humble politeness to commoners, surprised to learn he was born a farmer's son. Ian explains that he simply strives to emulate his late master's exceptionally kind and respectful nature. Steering the conversation, Ian asks about her next steps, and she reveals her destination. She hopes her uncle, Count Catino, will offer aid, prompting the wizard to question their relationship. She nervously admits that her mother and the Count merely tolerated each other. The cautious wizard realizes this lukewarm connection might lead to a highly treacherous situation. Offended by his skepticism, the noble girl fiercely defends her uncle as the most trustworthy man alive. Cautiously navigating their dangerous path, the young wizard silently hopes that the noble girl's uncle is indeed the trustworthy savior she believes him to be. Shrouded beneath her dark hood, Lucy bitterly reflects on her dire situation, explaining that her uncle is her only hope in a world full of marriage-obsessed vultures. With a playful, teasing smile, she boldly hints that she would gladly accept a proposal from him, leaving the stoic wizard completely exasperated. Unmoved by her playful charms, Ian coldly reminds her that their contract officially terminates the exact moment they reach Count Catina's estate. He delivers a blunt reality check, flatly stating that she is far from the only girl in the world. The sudden insult hits the proud noble girl like a physical blow, leaving her face contorted in comedic outrage. Fuming with rage, she storms down the cobbled street, screaming at him as he wonders where on earth she is going. Seeking a temporary escape from their bickering, they approach a warm, inviting inn marked by a brass bell by the door. Stepping aside, the bickering travelers are instantly greeted by the cozy warmth and lively chatter of the local tavern. Approaching the counter, the young wizard requests lodging for a few nights along with a hot bath. Without hesitation, Ian drops a heavy, overflowing pouch of gold coins onto the wooden table to secure their stay. The innkeeper's eyes light up with pure delight as she happily accepts the incredibly generous payment. The hostess points toward Lucy, innocently asking if the young lady will also be taking a bath. Terrified of the suggestion, Lucy recoils in sudden panic, waving her hands to frantically reject the offer. Confused by her dramatic reaction, the young mage mockingly questions if she is simply too picky about the water. Blushing furiously, she frantically explains that bathing in this medieval world means sacrificing all semblance of privacy. The wizard stares back in blank confusion, completely failing to grasp her dilemma. A comedic illustration depicts the harsh reality of medieval bathtubs, which offer absolutely zero privacy for anyone. A sudden realization hits Ian like a lightning bolt, causing his eyes to widen in sheer shock. Quickly correcting himself, the embarrassed wizard tells the host to prepare just a single bath for him instead. Pulling her hood back, the noble girl exhales a massive sigh of relief, completely unaware of the new danger she has just created. Her stunning beauty instantly catches the eyes of several rough-looking tavern patrons who stare at her with predatory grins. Sensing the immediate danger, the wizard's eyes narrow into a deadly warning glare directed at the staring men. Ian sharply orders her to put her hood back on while she stubbornly demands he address her by her fake name, Kathy. Ignoring her complaints, the young mage takes matters into his own hands and forcefully pulls the hood back over her head. Grumbling about her exhausting stubbornness, Ian guides her upstairs as the suspicious patrons watch their every move. Downstairs, the sinister thugs smile creepily, clearly plotting something nefarious after witnessing her beauty. Under the cover of a darkening sky, the quiet town of Riverville begins to harbor a dangerous scheme. Outside the inn, the thugs marvel at her angelic beauty, claiming they have never seen anyone like her in their entire lives. Underestimating their target, they note that she is only guarded by a seemingly scrawny, helpless pretty boy. The group of criminals eagerly decides to kidnap her, anticipating a thrilling and easy capture. Cracking his knuckles with a wicked smirk, the leader declares they will carry out the abduction this very night. Far above the brewing conflict, the peaceful sky shines over the grand estate of the local ruler. The majestic spires of Riverville Castle stand tall, holding the key to the town's political power. Inside the grand hall, Baron Kultz, the Lord of Riverville, casually instructs a merchant to keep trouble to a minimum. Bowing low in deep gratitude, the merchant leader, Lord Leek, promises to do his best. Still on his knees, the clever merchant schemes on how to win the Baron's ultimate favor and secure a permanent stay in the castle. A brilliant lightbulb moment strikes Leek as he remembers the legendary master mage they encountered. Looking up, the merchant eagerly asks the Lord of Riverville if he can share a highly intriguing piece of news. The merchant strikes a dramatic theatrical pose to build maximum suspense for his tale. Greatly amused by the showmanship, the Baron smiles wanly and permits him to speak. Glowing with excitement, Leek begins his story by revealing their fateful encounter with an incredibly powerful mage. He dramatically reenacts the wizard's spectacular battle, describing how he tamed a mighty drake and saved their lives. Leek raises a single finger to deliver the ultimate, shocking climax of his grand tale. He proudly reveals that the legendary dragon-controlling master mage is currently staying in an inn right here in town. The Baron's face instantly twists in pure, unadulterated terror at the shocking revelation. Sweating profusely, the ruler panics over the catastrophic threat of having an unpredictable godlike wizard roaming his territory. He visualizes a horrifying nightmare of the capricious wizard unleashing a ferocious drake to burn his entire city to ashes. Tears of absolute dread well up in his eyes as the Baron realizes the terrifying danger looming over his domain. His horror deepens as he contemplates the disastrous presence of ruthless thugs already scheming within his city walls. The legendary Holy Santiago Knights stand united, wielding their brilliant, glowing swords of absolute justice. These warrior monks dedicate their deadly martial arts to hunting dangerous monsters and demons. They style themselves as the radiant, self-proclaimed protectors and shields of all humanity. The paranoid Baron dreads a catastrophic clash if these holy knights cross paths with Ian. An explosive, electrifying showdown between the legendary wizard and the armored knights looms ahead. The terrifying prospect of an all-out war leaves the helpless lord sweating in absolute comedic dread. Sweating profusely from pure panic, the Baron desperately screams for his chief commander. The loyal military officer instantly salutes, ready to execute his terrified lord's next urgent command. The Baron grants the ecstatic merchant a safe room within his castle walls as a reward. Fearing the unpredictable wizard, the Baron orders his commander to summon the holy knights immediately. He desperately hopes to secure the knights' help before total city-destroying chaos can erupt. Meanwhile, back at the cozy inn, Ian and Lucy quietly enjoy a hot, soothing meal together. The overwhelmed tavern hostess frantically apologizes to an impatient, hungry customer for the delayed service. She deeply sighs, laments that she hasn't even begun preparing Ian's promised hot bath. Showing his humble farmer roots, the polite wizard graciously volunteers to fetch the water himself. He gently instructs the disguised noble girl to head safely up to their room after eating. Left alone at the table, Lucy happily continues enjoying her hot blue soup. Sneaking a predatory look, a creepy thug smiles sinisterly as he watches her from afar. Finishing her meal, the unsuspecting noble girl quietly makes her way up the wooden stairs. She walks down the dimly lit hallway, completely unaware that a trap has been set. A strange man suddenly grabs her arm, asking if she is the companion of the wizard. Startled by the sudden physical contact, Lucy angrily demands to know the stranger's identity. The suspicious man nervously claims to be an errand boy hired directly by her companion. He displays a heavy gold coin, lying that Ian urgently requested her at the docks. He fabricates a panic-inducing story about Ian getting into trouble while preparing his backyard bath. Lucy instantly panics, fearing that the ruthless thugs from earlier have successfully captured her protector. Seizing on her sudden terror, the clever trickster urges her to follow him outside immediately. Desperate to save her companion, Lucy quickly rushes down the dark tavern stairs. They slip out of the tavern, stepping out into the cool night air outside. She runs blindly behind the deceptive stranger, stepping straight into a dangerous dark trap. Suddenly, she freezes in her tracks as a shocking, unexpected realization hits her. She gasps upon spotting Ian completely safe, calmly boiling water over a campfire. Before she can retreat, the fake errand boy violently snatches her hood to trap her. A desperate, echoing scream pierces through the rainy night, shattering the quiet town. Hearing her terrified call, the young wizard instantly snaps his head around in alarm. Realizing Lucy is in grave danger, the overprotective wizard prepares to unleash his wrath. An ambush thug strikes from behind, completely underestimating the raw power of the master mage. With effortless fluid reflexes, Ian casually ducks beneath the heavy wooden club swing. The clumsy attacker completely misses his target, face planting onto the grass in a hilarious blunder. Looking down at the pathetic foe, Ian realizes these kidnappers are just low-level street thugs. Across the wooden fence, Ian spots the remaining kidnappers running away with Lucy in a sack. Springing into action, the furious wizard prepares to give chase and rescue his partner. The downed thug desperately scrambles back up, screaming that he won't let Ian escape. Annoyed by the petty delay, the irritated wizard sighs over losing his primary target. A sudden, swirling vortex of crackling magical energy erupts around the terrified criminal. Ian carefully calculates which low-level magical mystery he can safely manifest with his current mana. The playful spirits of darkness eagerly whisper to Ian as the night sky deepens around them. Racing his hand toward the sky, the wizard confidently invokes a dark spell of shadows. Pitch black, swirling smoke instantly envelops the panicked thug, completely robbing him of his vision. Blinded and utterly helpless, the terrified criminal cowers in fear as Ian stands victoriously over him. A terrifying red-eyed glare erupts from the shadowed face of the furious wizard. A desperate plea for mercy echoes as a mysterious group of heavily armed men suddenly arrives. Looking back, Ian warily wonders if the helpless thug managed to call for backup. Standing tall, the young mage prepares to face the new arrivals holding his simple staff. Without wasting a moment, Ian sharply demands to know where they took his companion. The recovering thug celebrates regaining his vision, completely ignoring the wizard's irritation. Losing his patience, Ian furiously clocks the thug over the head to force an answer. Suddenly, the sharp chime of a drawing sword alerts the wizard to an immediate threat. A powerful gray-haired elder steps forward, commanding the young wizard to stand down. Staring intently, the veteran swordsman asks Ian if he was the one who summoned the darkness. Standing his ground, the young wizard confidently admits to using the shadowy spell. The imposing leader of the warriors silently evaluates Ian with a sharp, calculating gaze. Feeling the chill, the young mage immediately senses an overwhelming aura of deadly bloodlust. Scrambling backward in tears, the pathetic criminal desperately begs the armed newcomers for salvation. The weeping thug falsely claims that the dangerous mage is trying to murder him for no reason. Clinging to the elder's leg, the crying criminal whimpers while Ian watches in utter disbelief. A subtle, knowing smirk plays on the lips of the battle-hardened old master. The elder casually reasons that such reckless behavior is perfectly expected of a powerful wizard. Over the boiling cauldron, a tense silence falls as Ian tries to comprehend the elder's logic. Turning to the old man, Ian demands clarification on his strange assumption. The veteran swordsman explains that mages are notorious for doing whatever they please. Utterly dumbfounded, the sweat-drenched wizard can only stare in sheer disbelief. Behind the leader, the confused warriors wonder about the old man's warped perception of magic users. Clenching his staff, the offended mage prepares to voice his absolute outrage. Ian furiously snaps, yelling that the thug was the actual aggressor and nobody attacks without reason. His echoing dramatic tantrum plays out in a hilariously silent courtyard under a passing bird. Instantly regretting his outburst, Ian panics about potentially provoking the heavily armed swordsman. To his absolute shock, the old master bursts into hearty, cheerful laughter. The elder warmly declares that Ian's foul language is definitive proof of a highly skilled master mage. Stepping forward, the brown-haired swordsman Dicktree criticizes Ian for relying on such wicked magic. Highly offended, the young wizard narrows his eyes at the insult to his spellcraft. Dicktree argues that blinding others with darkness is a direct insult to the heaven's eye. Standing proud, the swordsman smugly asserts that hiding in shadows is a cowardly act. Repeating the strange logic to himself, Ian realizes how bizarre these locals truly are. He quickly pieces together the religious tone behind the swordsman's bizarre accusations. Looking at their matching longswords, Ian realizes these men are devout followers of the sun god. Tucking his hand into his cloak, the clever wizard prepares to turn their own beliefs against them. Ian asks why night exists if the heavens only value absolute brightness. He unleashes a torrential, hyper-detailed logic lecture, arguing that darkness naturally coexists with light. Completely short-circuited by the wizard's intellectual assault, the stunned swordsman stutters in silence. The surrounding warriors begin whispering to each other, utterly swayed by the mage's brilliant point. Sweating profusely under the logical pressure, the stunned warrior gulps in absolute defeat. The group suddenly bursts into celebratory laughter, fully accepting Ian's profound theological wisdom. The exhausted wizard can only sigh at the sheer absurdity of these medieval minds. Urgently changing the subject, Ian explains his sister has been kidnapped and requests to leave. The elder's eyes grow with terrifying red bloodlust upon realizing the crying thug is an accomplice. The shivering thug panics as the entire group of knights glare down at him with murderous intent. The old master commands Ditri to stay behind and guard the captured criminal. Bowing politely, the legendary knight offers to assist the young mage in rescuing his kidnapped sister. Down at the river dock, the real kidnappers prepare their escape boat, completely unaware of the looming storm. A desperate race against time begins as Ian hunts the kidnappers down. A knight points ahead, confirming the witness's tip about the harbor. The warriors express fury over the villain's desperate escape by boat. Ian warily notes the danger of pursuit on the darkened waters. A sudden booming command from behind startles the young wizard. Ian turns back in confusion as the old master suddenly speaks up. The impassioned leader rallies his men to launch their boats immediately. The holy knights eagerly row their commitment to protect the weak. Ian quietly admits that their righteous creed is actually quite impressive. Ian tries to warn of the danger, but the elder dismisses his concerns. The old man jovially explains that this is simply his normal way of speaking. Ian plans to pull their boat back using a newly found hook. The elder stares in absolute shock at the wizard's outrageous plan. The elder questions his water magic, but Ian casually reveals his multi-school training. The old veteran recalls that war mages normally specialize in only one element. While the elder doubts basic level capabilities, Ian boldly commands the river itself. A colossal torrent of water surges upward, defying all logic. The elder gasps, recognizing this spell is far stronger than battlefield magic. The fleeing criminals panic as the river's current suddenly reverses. The kidnappers scream in terror as their vessel is violently pulled back. The runaway boat is dragged violently back to the wooden dock. The knights firmly lead the groaning captives away under Ian's watchful gaze. A sobbing Lucy throws herself into Ian's arms in pure relief. Ian defensively accuses the stunned elder of making his sister cry. Ian softly comforts the traumatized girl, patting her head gently. Lucy continues to weep as Ian holds her close under the sunset. The exhausted young wizard sighs heavily, completely drained of energy. Ian desperately longs to return to the inn for a warm bath. The heavy narration ominously hints at a looming threat they still ignore. The narrator notes how incredibly rare a peaceful moment truly is. Heavy riders barrel down the street, urgently ordering citizens back to the inn. Ian looks on in utter confusion as Lucy presents a captive crow. The elder explains how Lucy saved the unfortunate bird from becoming lunch. Lucy enthusiastically points out the destiny between a raven and a crow. An incredibly awkward silence falls over the bizarre avian confrontation. Lucy passionately insists that this meeting is an undeniable act of fate. Ian bluntly tells the hunter to eat the bird, sparking Lucy's outrage. Ian dismisses her silly theories, asserting his authority as the actual wizard. The hunter happily prepares to cook the bird, unaware it is pleading for help. Ian suddenly commands them to stop, leaving the hunter utterly bewildered. Ian demands to know the crow's true nature as it begs him. Ian sternly repeats his question while the desperate bird continues to beg. Ian mentally notes that his spell failed, questioning his current magical strength. Ian snaps at the crying bird to shut up while promising to save it. A vein of pure irritation pops on Ian's head. Ian furiously shouts at the talkative bird to remain completely silent. The terrified crow freezes in complete shock at his outburst. Ian smugly notes that the clever bird at least knows how to read the room. The amazed hunter asks if Ian can talk to birds, and Ian confirms it. Lucy gleefully gloats that she knew the extraordinary bird was special all along, but what dark secrets does this talking crow actually hide? Just when Ian thinks the chaos is finally over, Lucy immediately begins bragging about her hidden magical potential to the amused gray-haired elder. Tending to the wounded little hostage, Ian carefully wraps a clean bandage around the black crow's injured wing. Sitting across from Lucy in the cozy inn, Ian ponders what they should do with the newly rescued bird. Knowing the cruel nature of the local hunters, Ian grimly realizes the poor bird will end up as dinner if returned. Perched on the table, the bandaged crow stares up with a curious and innocent gaze. To Ian's utter shock, the desperate crow literally begs him in human speech not to leave him behind. Feeling a massive headache coming on, Ian can only sigh as the talkative bird comfortably perches on his shoulder. Lucy eagerly asks if they can keep the bird, and Ian reluctantly agrees to let it stay until it fully heals. Overjoyed by the decision, Lucy's eyes sparkle with pure excitement as she prepares to name their new feathered companion. While Lucy affectionately dotes on the bird, Ian watches in complete disbelief, wondering if the crow is actually enjoying the attention. Cutting through Lucy's overly dramatic name ideas, Ian casually decides on a much simpler name, Oberon. Gently stroking the black feathers, Ian officially welcomes the newly named Oberon to their small traveling party. Immediately letting the name go to his head, Oberon proudly demands tribute and promises his divine favor. Shifting focus back to their dangerous journey, Lucy suggests that traveling alongside the mighty Holy Knights would be their safest bet. Mentally picturing a squad of overly muscular, glistening warriors, Ian begrudgingly admits that having such heavy muscle around would keep bandits far away. Looking out over the empty room, the young wizard wonders if the knights are even heading in the same direction. Right on cue, the majestic gray-haired elder suddenly appears, curious about what the young mage is agonizing over. Taking a seat, the veteran swordsman wisely notes that a lone wizard traveling with a young girl is a recipe for danger. Flashing a clever grin, the battle-hardened leader proposes a mutually beneficial deal to the young wizard. The elder reveals that their knight order is currently marching to hunt a terrifying beast invading Count Katina's territory. Hearing the word monster instantly puts the cautious young mage on high alert. Sunlight streams through the large window, casting a tense glow over their high-stakes negotiation. With a serious expression, the elder asks Ian if he is familiar with the legendary and terrifying creature known as the Manticore. Ominous text confirms that this legendary beast is a ruthless, bloodthirsty predator that lives only to kill. A horrifying vision depicts the crimson-winged lion standing victoriously atop a mountain of fallen warriors. Utterly flabbergasted, Ian questions if the elder is seriously asking them to hunt such a lethal nightmare. The old master quickly waves his hands, assuring Ian that he has no intention of putting him in direct danger. The veteran's sharp, glowing eyes lock onto the young wizard with absolute intensity. Deep in thought, Ian remains silent as he carefully weighs the dangerous offer. Deciding the risk is far too high, the young mage prepares to stand up and walk away. Ian flatly rejects the offer, but the laughing elder quickly grabs his shoulder, pleading with him to listen to the rest of the plan. The other clarifies that their mission actually has nothing to do with fighting the beast. He reveals that their noble group is a holy knight order operating under the grand monastic order of the heavenly god. Intrigued by the sudden religious connection, Ian and Lucy listen intently to the elder's explanation. The old man sighs in frustration, explaining how the pushy local priests have been forcefully demanding help from a stubborn local wizard. Gesturing to the room, the elder asks Ian to act as a mediator to smooth things over with the disgruntled magic user. Narrowing his eyes, Ian realizes that a fellow wizard is far more likely to listen to him than to a group of heavily armed knights. Looking over at Lucy and Oberon, Ian calculates that a simple conversation is an incredibly cheap price for a heavily armed escort. With a confident smirk, the clever wizard officially accepts the deal and agrees to travel together. Under a brilliant blue sky, the narrative notes that traveling with the Holy Knights is surprisingly luxurious. The breathtaking green mountains loom ahead, signaling a smooth and peaceful journey through the wilderness. Marching confidently through the sunny fields, the group enjoys a remarkably stress-free trek. As night falls, the travelers gather around a crackling campfire, roasting delicious meat skewers. Just as Ian is about to enjoy his dinner, a booming voice from one of the knights suddenly calls out to him. Sparkles of holy enthusiasm erupt as the brown-haired knight eagerly holds up a sacred book, inviting Ian to study the Bible. Instantly, the other knights join in the religious crusade, enthusiastically begging the wizard to learn with them. Showing absolutely zero interest in their holy teachings, Ian bluntly shuts them down with a flat rejection. Chewing his food in absolute silence, Ian instantly regrets his earlier thoughts about how comfortable this journey would be. Sitting across the fire, the amused, gray-haired elder chuckles softly at the wizard's visible discomfort. The smiling elder playfully suggests that if Ian would only listen to the divine, he could easily become a revered cleric of their order. But what terrifying secrets await them in the territory of Count Katina? And will this stubborn wizard survive the impending clash with the legendary Manticore? Ian thoughtfully ponders, the voice of God, huh? He wonders if truly being able to converse with God would let him ask about his reincarnation in the status window. The knight sits reading his book as another calls out to Ditchtree. Standing with Oberon on his shoulder, Ian eagerly asks the knight if he can join their Bible study. Ian sits quietly alongside the knight to study the holy book together. Oberon perches quietly on Ian's shoulder as he reads the scriptures. Resting around the campfire, Lucy sleeps peacefully while Ian continues reading. A mysterious voice suddenly rings out, praising Ian for having a very good attitude. Looking up, Ian politely responds, "Yes, thank you for the compliment." The knight asks, "What's wrong all of a sudden?" while a bewildered Ian replies that he just said he had a good attitude. Ditchtree freaks out, screaming, "Eek! I didn't say anything. What kind of voice did you hear?" as Ian insists he heard someone speaking. A cold sweat breaks on Ian as he realizes the voice might not have been human after all. An ethereal voice whispers, "Hee hee, I wonder," leaving a shocked Ian speechless. The terrified knight stumbles backward in absolute panic over the wizard's spooky realization. Ian clutches his head as he tries to process the bizarre presence. Pointing his staff at the sky, Ian shouts, "You're a god, aren't you?" as the mysterious voice answers, "Probably?" Ian glares intensely at the silent bird on his shoulder, shouting, "You?" Furious, Ian demands, "Why did you reincarnate me into this world?" Clenching his fists, Ian aggressively screams at the presence, "Answer me, hurry up!" A sudden violent surge of divine wind whips around Ian's glowing body. The strange, cosmic presence abruptly fades back into the dark night forest. Staring at the crazed wizard, the cowering knight mutters, "Huh? Don't tell me?" Looking completely dumbfounded, Ian blankly mutters he actually left. A massive tick of pure irritation pops on Ian's head as he calls out, "Hello?" Ian furiously screams, "Hey, God, come back here," while the terrified knight begs him to wait. Ian rages, "I said get down here right now," as the knight's panic pleading, "Please calm down," and wondering what is wrong with him. The narrator notes that after that, Ian studied the scriptures like an absolute madman. With fire in his eyes, Ian studies, "All so I could talk to that shitty god one more time." A system window alerts Ian that he acquired the divine art skill to converse with the elegant, beautiful ruler of this world. The system screen cheerily reads, "Way to go, Ian," leaving the wizard surprised at how fast it appeared. The system spams needy notifications demanding Ian study more and show interest to please the elegant, graceful ruler of the world. Ian can only doubtfully wonder, is this really the god who gave me the skill? A vein of pure annoyance pops as Ian angrily slams the book. Ian bitterly realizes that this author god dropped him into this world just to look down and snicker to himself. Hanging his head in complete despair, Ian weakly mutters, "Damn it." Stepping forward, the young wizard resolves it can't be helped. Walking ahead, Ian plans to find more mysteries and gather points. Under a brilliant shooting star, the wizard resolves to strengthen his divine arts. A few days later, the scene shifts to the bright forest path. The Holy Knights engage in a fast-paced sword fight against hostile bandits. The battle-hardened gray-haired elder easily cuts down an enemy with a sword. A slashed bandit collapses heavily onto the blood-soaked ground, completely defeated. The battle-worn gray-haired elder calls out, "Hey, wizard, is everything all right?" Standing beside Lucy and nervous Ian smilingly replies, "Yes." Standing over the fallen enemies, Ian comments, "You guys completely wiped them out, after all." Lucy asks, "You're not hurt, are you?" While Ian responds, "I'm fine. What about you, elder?" The elder laughs, "Haha, I might be an old man, but I won't lose to the likes of them." Ian praises the elder's mercenary past, prompting him to proudly claim he made quite a name for himself in his youth. The battle-hardened veteran stands proudly holding his sheathed sword with a wide grin. Dark golden beams descend, signaling the start of their next dangerous adventure. To escape the endless cycle of foolish challengers seeking his legendary sword, the seasoned veteran conceals his true power behind a simple alias. Hearing this, Ian realizes their gray-haired guide might be a legendary figure far more famous than he ever let on. Celebrating a flawless victory, the elder proudly raises his blade as his loyal squad of holy knights cheers in triumph. The brief celebration ends as a young knight steps forward to point out a crucial fork in the forest path. A grim choice lies ahead, with one path leading directly to safety and the other venturing straight into the monster's deadly territory. Pointing toward the dense woods, the elder directs Ian toward the elusive wizard's hidden sanctuary. With an encouraging grin, the gray-haired veteran urges the young mage to keep up the pace. Stopping their guide in his tracks, Ian suddenly turns back to address Lucy with a look of concern. Ian tries to persuade Lucy to stay with them, but she stubbornly insists on heading off alone. Despite Ian's worried protests, the purple-haired girl reassures him of her safety and runs down her own path with a cheerful bounce. Flashing a bright, carefree smile, she waves a final farewell before disappearing into the wilderness. As her small figure fades into the distance, a heavy wave of concern washes over the remaining travelers. Determined to ensure her safety, Ian resolves to complete this current errand as fast as possible to catch up with her. When the elder questions her sudden departure, the young mage explains she simply went on ahead and that he will follow shortly. Shifting their focus back to the task at hand, they trek deeper into the woods, anticipating their meeting with the mysterious magic user. The elder suddenly claps a hand onto Ian's shoulder, cryptically asking if he is mentally prepared for what lies ahead. The veteran warns that the local priests have thoroughly enraged the local wizard, making his reaction completely unpredictable. Annoyed by the unnecessary drama, the young wizard questions why they must be the ones to fix the church's mistakes. The elder can only offer a guilty, nervous grin, completely unable to deny Ian's logical complaint. The ultimate motivation is revealed. Cold, hard cash from the Holy Order makes any dangerous chore worth their while. Realizing the source of their lavish gear, Ian dryly notes that the church's generous funding explains their high-end equipment. With hearty laughter, the elder cheerfully assures Ian that a fellow wizard is bound to show him some professional courtesy. Stepping into the unknown, Ian realizes this will be his very first encounter with a magic user besides his old mentor. A sense of foreboding hangs in the silent, dark woods as they approach their destination. Deep within the foliage, a strange wooden cottage appears, engulfed in an eerie, swirling green mist. The local wildlife lies dead and foaming at the mouth, confirming a highly toxic presence nearby. Inside, the eccentric botanical mage, Maney Campbell, cackles as she stirs a toxic, bubbling brew. It turns out the pushy Holy Knights had previously threatened the botanical mage, demanding her cooperation under the church's authority. Irritated by their arrogance, the old witch grumbles in pure annoyance at the memory. She decides that if these knights want her powerful magic, they must first survive her deadly culinary creations. The bubbling broth releases an agonizingly pungent aroma designed to test the limits of anyone who dares enter. With a malicious cackle, she prepares her toxic welcome for her unsuspecting guests. Outside the cabin, Ian ponders the strange reputation of this mysterious plant mage. The elder confirms that Molly Campbell is indeed a legendary master of botanical magic. Famous for her mastery over nature and lethal toxins, her deadly poisons are the key weapon needed to hunt the manticore. As they approach, the knights choke on the horrific stench, but Ian's expression suddenly turns to one of surprised recognition. Before they can knock, the door flies open to reveal the cackling witch welcoming the warriors of Santiago. The elder immediately recoils in disgust, barely able to breathe through the overwhelming odor. Ignoring their distress, the toothless witch greets them with a twisted, mischievous grin. She proudly presents a massive cauldron overflowing with whole chickens and an absurd amount of garlic. Inside her rustic workshop, the dense green herbal fumes hang heavy in the air. Tears streaming down their faces, the terrified knights struggle to even hold the foul-smelling bowls. While the elder sweatily begs her to stop the torture, Mani insists she is merely offering a hospitable feast of her prized crops. With a cold ultimatum, she tells them they can either eat her meal or leave immediately without her help. Taking the plunge, the brave knights immediately regret their life choices as they choke and gag on the rancid stew. Watching the soldiers suffer, the old witch begins to wonder if she made the trial a little too cruel. Meanwhile, Ian sits peacefully in the corner, happily devouring the garlic-loaded soup with absolute joy. The witch watches in sheer disbelief as the young wizard greedily gorges himself on the pungent, garlic-heavy broth. Sweating in pure bewilderment, the legendary plant mage asks Ian if he is actually okay eating her toxic concoction. With a glowing smile of pure satisfaction, Ian declares the lethal garlic-packed stew to be absolutely delicious. Shocked beyond belief, the legendary plant mage cannot comprehend how her lethal concoction is actually being enjoyed. Oblivious to her panic, the dark-haired wizard happily eats, praising the incredible flavor of her garlic-packed brew. He greedily shovels down another massive spoonful of the supposedly toxic stew without showing a single symptom. The old witch and the terrified knights freeze in absolute horror, completely dumbfounded by his supernatural stomach. Unable to take it anymore, the outraged witch aggressively grabs the young wizard to stop his bizarre feast. The stunned plant mage yells that in her 40 years of magic, she has never encountered such a lunatic. Narrowing her eyes in deep suspicion, the old witch demands to know the young wizard's real name. When he nervously reveals his name as Ian Meredith Raven, the old witch instantly recognizes the legendary surname. Her eyes widen in sheer terror as she begins to piece together the young man's terrifyingly powerful lineage. The witch hesitantly asks if he is actually the direct disciple of the legendary flame mage, Lady Eredis. As night falls over the mysterious forest cottage, the witch immediately humbles herself and begs for his forgiveness. To make amends for her previous hostility, she quickly prepares a luxurious feast of buttered steak and cold ale. While staring at the rich feast, Ian dryly notes that her supposedly toxic boiled chicken was already amazing. Over dinner, the plant mage shifts the topic to inquire about their dangerous mission to hunt the elusive manticore. The old witch instantly turns dead serious, grimly warning the party that this hunt will not be easy. She recounts how a powerful nobleman hired elite hunters to capture the red-maned beast, only for all of them to be brutally slaughtered. Unfazed by the terrifying warning, the battle-hardened elder confidently declares that he is fully prepared for the danger. The veteran guide maintains a calm, determined gaze as he focuses on the upcoming battle. Turning her attention back to Ian, the witch pointedly asks the young wizard what he plans to do. She pressures him, stating that as a disciple of Eredis, he should easily be a full-fledged mage capable of aiding them. With her words lingering, she urges him to lend his legendary magical prowess to the struggling knights. The question triggers a deep memory within Ian, forcing him to reflect on the true duty of a mage. Glowing gears and butterflies float in his memory as he recalls his master's lesson about the inescapable ties between wizards and humanity. A vision of his elegant master, Lady Eredis, smiling warmly with her glasses on, serves as his guiding light. Ian realizes that while he does not have to fight, refusing would bring shame and ruin his standing among other mages. He envisions the prestigious Mage Circle, a powerful organization of spellcasters dedicated to protecting the secrets of the world. Knowing he cannot face his master if he ruins her reputation, Ian realizes he has no other choice. Glancing down at the hopeful knights waiting for his answer, the young wizard makes up his mind. Looking up with unwavering resolve, Ian officially announces that he will join their dangerous hunt. The next day dawns, shifting the scene as the group ventures deep into the dark, rustling forest. Moving cautiously through the thick trees, the wizard senses an incredibly ominous atmosphere settling over the woods. Suddenly, a black crow swoops down from the canopy, shouting that it has successfully located their target. Landing firmly on Ian's shoulder, the intelligent bird directs its master toward the manticore's nearby location. Seeing the wizard pause, the elder quickly asks him if something is wrong. The veteran guide is highly impressed, praising the incredible magical ability to communicate so clearly with beasts. Ian casually explains that he merely trained the bird to adapt to human speech while riding on his shoulder. As the ominous green fog thickens, the witch and elder walk forward, sensing a wave of pure bloodlust nearby. Sensing a potential peaceful solution, the elder asks Ian if they are dealing with a typical mindless monster. Ian wonders aloud if his unique summoning arts will allow him to simply persuade the beast to leave peacefully. The veteran guide looks skeptical, deeply questioning whether such a savage predator can actually be reasoned with. The old witch scoffs from behind her wide-brimmed hat, firmly stating that a manticore is incapable of understanding reason. An outraged chibi witch screams at Ian, mocked by his naive assumption that he can talk to such a dangerous mystery. Mockingly, she challenges him, promising to tell his master Lady Eridus everything if he actually pulls off the impossible persuasion. Sweating at her threat, Ian realizes that she is planning to tattle to his master rather than praise his unique skills. Suddenly, a panicked knight points forward, shouting that they have finally spotted the deadly beast. Ian quickly spins around as a heavy, suffocating aura begins to descend upon the entire party. An ominous crimson warning hangs in the air, confirming that the terrifying manticore is officially here. The entire squad of knights and mages stands shoulder to shoulder, preparing to face the ultimate horror lurking in the shadows. The Grand Fantasy logo flashes across the dark screen, marking a major turning point in the wizard's legendary journey. Bloody red slashes tear across the black void, sealing their fate as the battle for survival officially begins. Venturing deep into the dark, misty forest, the group moves cautiously toward their deadly target. The dark-haired wizard strictly warns his companions to stay close, and the old witch reluctantly agrees. Hearing a knight call out to him, the battle-hardened gray-haired elder turns around to address his squad. A scout reports that all their weapons are freshly coated with Mani's lethal glowing green poison. A close-up reveals several arrows coated in a highly toxic glowing green poison crafted by the witch. The gray-haired elder confidently orders his archers to unleash a volley of poison arrows at the beast. The young dark-haired wizard quietly listens to the subtle sound of the approaching predator. A sudden rustling sound echoes through the pitch-black shadows of the dense forest canopy. The poison-coated arrows slice through the dark, misty air directly toward the hidden beast. The arrows strike the creature's neck but spark harmlessly and bounce off its impenetrable skin. The gray-haired elder looks on in utter disbelief as the arrows fail to pierce the beast's neck. Terrified by their failed attack, the panicked knights sweat profusely and desperately ask their leader for orders. While the manticore cackles mockingly in the shadows, the elder determinedly commands his squad to attack again. The beast's massive clawed foot crashes down as the squad freezes in absolute terror at its scale. Sweating nervously, the dark-haired wizard is deeply unsettled by the creature's incredibly chilling laugh. A panicked knight shouts that the beast is upon them, leaving no time to recoat their weapons. Realizing they are completely out of options, the young wizard firmly grasps his staff to take action. With a sudden dramatic outburst, Ian screams the manticore's name to grab its full attention. The knights and elders spin around in total bewilderment, completely stunned by the wizard's reckless shout. The witch gasps in shock as the massive red-maned manticore lands heavily right in front of Ian. Intrigued by the sudden call, the monstrous manticore mockingly notes how unusual it is for a human to address him. Trying to keep his composure, Ian calmly expresses relief that the giant beast can actually comprehend his words. Ian politely introduces himself as a mage, only for the beast to instantly tell him to get lost. The dark-haired wizard completely freezes in cartoonish shock as the giant predator giggles mockingly. The cheeky beast hurls a pile of poop onto Ian's head while throwing out a highly insulting remark. Furiously wiping his head, Ian snaps at the monster, who mockingly tells him to drop the polite act. Glaring intensely, the red-maned manticore demands the young wizard spit out whatever it is he wants. Without missing a beat, the dark-haired wizard bluntly states that he wants the beast's scalp. The monstrous manticore bursts into a fit of hysterical laughter, scattering crows into the sky. Silence briefly settles over the forest as Ian stands firmly, holding his wooden staff. The wicked beast addresses Ian, proposing a dark alliance to join forces with him instead. The manticore suggests they slaughter the human knights together, leaving the dark-haired wizard deeply shocked. The bloodthirsty predator gleefully boasts about his insatiable desire to feast on human meat. The beast tempts Ian with promises of gold and captives, revealing his plan to slaughter them afterward. Licking his claws with a twisted grin, the vile monster revels in his own horrific bloody fantasy. Sighing in pure exhaustion, the young wizard looks up, completely done with the beast's nonsense. Slamming his staff, Ian declares the monster's sickening plans to be absolutely intolerable to listen to. With rising anger, the dark-haired wizard fiercely calls the beast a worthless piece of trash. To unleash his absolute disdain, Ian boldly flips a pixelated middle finger right at the giant predator. While a chibi knight stands utterly speechless, Ian coldly prepares to unleash his next move. Enraged by the wizard's ultimate disrespect, the massive manticore roars that Ian is now officially worth killing. Shocked by the realization, a knight gasps as he realizes the beast is actually speaking the Imperial language. Suddenly, the toothless witch Mani screams out a powerful spell command to make her magic grow. Mani violently stamps her foot on the ground, channeling an immense surge of botanical energy. A tiny glowing green sprout immediately bursts from the forest floor, radiating with immense magical power. Massive thorn-green vines rapidly shoot up from the earth, tightly wrapping around the screaming manticore. The gray-haired elder looks up in sheer awe as the colossal vines completely envelop the giant beast. The startled elder frantically asks Mani what she did, and she casually boasts that she just ate the manticore. The elder panics, pointing out that she has trapped their own knights inside the massive vines as well. Mani aggressively yells back that the knights can handle themselves and devouring the manticore remains her top priority. A sudden, agonizing scream echoes through the dark forest, shattering the fragile peace and instantly catching the veteran guide's attention. Desperately running toward the source of the cry, a panicked voice calls out to the elder for help. Emerging from the thick foliage, the battle-hardened elder frantically calls out to see if his squad is safe. Sweating in sheer panic, the young wizard Ian turns his head in shock as a grim revelation hits the party. The group halts as a dark shadow falls over them, and a terrifying realization leaves the young wizard wide-eyed with fear. Lying bloody and heavily bandaged on the ground, the knight Dietrich struggles to breathe as his life hangs by a thread. Clinging desperately to the dying knight, the elder refuses to accept the grim reality unfolding before him. Ian watches in stunned silence, his heart heavy as he confronts the cold reality of death. Clenching his fist tightly over a spellbook, the young wizard is gripped by a sudden surge of resolve. Grief-stricken memories of his past interactions with Dietrich flood Ian's mind, making the loss feel painfully real. He reflects on the brutal nature of this world, where deadly monster attacks are an inescapable reality. Looking at a tombstone, Ian realizes that the threat of death is no longer a distant tale, but a terrifying reality closing in. Making up his mind, the young wizard rushes forward to join the grieving knights gathered around their fallen comrade. Kneeling beside the dying knight, Ian gently reminds Dietrich of their past conversations about faith and the scriptures. With a quiet, knowing smile, the dark-haired wizard prepares to attempt the impossible. Looking up at the vast blue sky, he recalls Dietrich's hopeful words about the heavens opening for them. A nostalgic memory of a younger Ian standing beneath a bright, clear sky flashes back. Tears stream down Dietrich's face as he weakly confirms the memory, accepting his final moments. Channeling a gentle, radiant blue aura, Ian softly invites the dying knight to pray with him one last time. Closing his eyes with serene focus, the young wizard prepares to unleash his hidden magical reserves. In a vision of warmth and light, a comforting message reassures Ian that his own heaven is right beside him. The sudden blinding light startles Ian, cutting through his thoughts with absolute force. Grasping the knight's hands as powerful holy magic begins to swell, Ian decides to risk everything to bring him back. A brilliant, crackling burst of blue energy erupts from Ian's hands, lighting up the dark forest. A massive pillar of divine light shoots into the sky, vaporizing the shadows and stunning the onlookers. The elder and his knight shield their eyes, completely overwhelmed by the breathtaking display of holy power. As the spell reaches its peak, the dying knight weakly registers the incredible divine energy enveloping his body. Sweating from the immense strain, Ian stands back in astonishment as the glowing magic works its wonders. A celestial voice echoes through the radiant light, commanding Dietrich to wake up. Suddenly, Dietrich finds himself kneeling before a grand golden cathedral bathing in divine light. A beautiful angelic goddess clad in pure white robes floats down from the heavens toward him. Staring up in absolute disbelief, the stunned knight gasps as he realizes he is in the presence of a true goddess. Floating gracefully, the deity warmly welcomes the knight to her celestial realm. Overwhelmed by her divine majesty, Dietrich immediately bows flat on the ground to show his utmost respect. Trembling with emotion, the knight sheds tears of joy, realizing he has officially entered the afterlife. Looking down at him with endless grace, the goddess prepares to bestow a sacred duty upon him. A burst of celestial light conveys her divine mandate to protect the weak and spread happiness. Gently placing her hand on his head, the goddess seals her blessing upon the devoted knight. Her final shocking command directs him to serve her chosen apostle, the young wizard Ian. The divine realm begins to fade as her final wish echoes through the vanishing light. A sudden blinding flash marks the transition back to the physical world. Dietrich's eyes snaps open as life is forcefully breathed back into his mortal body. The elder and a nearby knight yell in utter shock as they witness the miraculous resurrection. Sitting up slowly, a heavily bandaged Dietrich looks around in a daze, wondering where he is. A familiar pair of boots approaches as the young wizard calls out the knight's name. Holding his wooden staff with a smug grin, Ian playfully asks him how it feels to return from the dead. Crying hysterically, a chibi Dietrich desperately clings to Ian, who looks incredibly annoyed by the sudden physical affection. Sobbing with gratitude, Dietrich exclaims that Ian must have saved him on the direct orders of the goddess. Sweating awkwardly, the young wizard is completely speechless at the knight's dramatic reaction. As the silhouette of the goddess looms behind him, Ian silently notes that since her power aided him, the knight's assumption isn't entirely wrong. Curiously, Dietrich asks how Ian knew, prompting the mage to reveal a message from the goddess. A divine flashback reveals the goddess reminding the knight that his sacred purpose is far from complete. Dietrich screams in absolute cartoonish shock as the reality of his resurrection fully sinks in. While the chibi knight bows in frantic worship, Ian stands smugly with his crow companion. Nearby knights cautiously observe the spectacle, whispering that Dietrich must be completely hallucinating. Peace briefly returns to the dark forest as the party recovers from the chaotic battle. Observing the lively scene, the elder dryly remarks on the group's surprisingly high energy. Raising his voice, the battle-hardened elder rallies the knights to resume their deadly manicore hum. Ian proposes sending his loyal crow companion Oberon ahead to safely scout their path. With a swift flutter of wings, the blackbird takes off into the den's canopy. The veteran guide stares in silent confusion, processing the young wizard's strange magical familiarity. A dark memory flashes in Ian's mind, recalling the manticore's terrifying history of violence. Looking up with cold resolve, Ian declares that they must utterly destroy the wicked beast. Shifting to the past, desperate screams echo through a burning town under a crimson sky. The massive manticore rampages through the streets, sending terrified villagers fleeing for their lives. Two desperate villagers flee through the chaos, trying to escape the beast's insatiable hunger. Suddenly, the older man trips, his hand slipping away in a moment of pure panic. Turning back in sheer terror, the young man screams out desperately for his fallen father. He freezes in agonizing horror as a shadow falls over his defenseless parent. A savage roar shakes the very earth as the predator corners its prey. The monstrous beast towers menacingly over the trembling old man, ready to strike. Crushing him beneath his massive paw, the predator prepares to exact its cruel punishment. The mocking monster orders the terrified youth to abandon his father and run away. Pointing his pitchfork, the defiant youth courageously stands his ground against the giant predator. The beast laughs wickedly, leaving the young man stunned by its ability to speak. With a twisted grin, the manticore proposes a horrific deal to spare the town. The bloodthirsty monster demands the son murder his own father in exchange for survival. Shielding his father, the furious youth fiercely rejects the monster's sick, demonic offer. Unfazed by the defiance, the vile predator glares back with a terrifying, malicious grin. Unleashing its fury, the monstrous beast lunges forward to slaughter the defiant youth. Suddenly, a massive sword slash cuts through the air, intercepting the deadly attack. The powerful counterstrike sends the colossal manticore crashing backward in total shock. Black blood erupts from the fresh wound as the monster roars in agony. A younger, battle-hardened elder charges forward fearlessly, brandishing his sharp steel blade. He delivers a brutal, heavy blow, slamming the colossal beast directly to the ground. Clinging to his father, the weeping youth realizes the legendary Knights of Santiago have arrived. Standing tall, the heroic elder fiercely commands his elite squad to prepare for battle. The brave knights join the fray, charging fearlessly alongside their battle-hardened leader. Roaring in utter defiance, the manticore mockingly asks if they are eager to die. Back in the present, the wounded beast mockingly calls the young wizard a desperate fool. Glaring back coldly, Ian notes that the monster's current struggle is completely futile. Enraged by the disrespect, the red-maned manticore aggressively tells the wizard to shut up. Smirking with absolute confidence, Ian mockingly retorts that the beast is all bark and no bite. Pushed past his limit, the furious predator charges directly toward the young mage. The massive manticore thunders down the path, closing the distance at terrifying speed. Ian's smirk deepens, catching the charging beast completely off guard as panic sets in. The monstrous manticore leaps into the air, blindly pursuing its target. Seizing the perfect moment, the toothless witch Manny screams out a powerful botanical incantation. A glowing green sprout instantly bursts forth, launching massive vines that tightly bind the beast. With the monster completely trapped, the elder commands the knights to unleash their final strike. The brave knights brace themselves as a powerful shockwave ripples through the battlefield. With unmatched speed and power, a devastating slash strikes the monstrous manticore. Enraged and heavily injured, the roaring beast furiously denounces their cooperative tactics. Seizing the golden opportunity, the battle-hardened elder commands Ian to unleash his magic. Locking his gaze on the target, the young wizard's eyes flare with cold determination. Raising his wooden staff, Ian channels his mana to summon a devastating fire spell. A colossal firestorm erupts, completely engulfing the screaming monster in a sea of flames. Amidst the drifting embers, the young wizard stands victorious as the ashes settle. The grateful villagers bow down to thank the heroic party for saving them. While the elder laughs heartily, Ian stands in the background looking deeply amused. When his cheeky crow companion asks if he is being left out, Ian grumpily tells him to shut up. Ian silently assumes the crowd is keeping their distance out of sheer terror of his fiery magic. Before he can dwell on it, a towering shadow approaches, leaving him completely puzzled. Bowing deeply, the grateful villagers warmly thank the young mage for saving their lives. Sweating awkwardly, the young wizard scratches his cheek, secretly flustered by their unexpected gratitude. Smiling warmly, the battle-hardened elder approaches and calls out the young mage's name. Panicking slightly, Chibi Ian quickly deflects the credit, claiming he was just following instructions. The elder gently tells him to stand tall, marveling at such incredible humility from a powerful wizard. Watching him closely, the elder foresees Ian becoming a legendary figure who will humiliate the arrogant nobility. The heavy rhythmic clanking of armored boots echoes across the stone courtyard. A squad of elite royal knights approaches, asking if they defeated the manticore. The elder confirms their identity, prompting the knights to introduce themselves as guards from the castle. Intrigued by the sudden mention of the castle, Ian listens as the knights politely invite them back. The scene shifts to a grand sunlit palace where Count Katina has requested their presence. Inside the luxurious high-ceilinged hall, a wealthy noble warmly welcomes the brave warriors. A magnificent banquet is prepared, praising their brave stand against the horrific beast. Flushed with wine, the eccentric noble praises their righteous, justice-driven souls with dramatic flair. While the elder humbly downplays their success, the emotional noble laments the state of his own forces. The noble sighs, wishing his castle had knights of their caliber, leaving his current guards sweating in embarrassment. Turning to Mage Mani, the noble guarantees that her forest will remain safe from overreaching priests. Turning his sharp gaze toward Ian, the noble mentions hearing many fascinating stories from his niece. Utterly ignoring the grand speech, Chibi Ian stuffs his face with food, leaving the noble completely speechless. Mouth full of food, Ian continues chewing as his crow points out that the host is addressing him. The noble freezes in disbelief, completely stunned by the young wizard's shockingly casual attitude. Swallowing his food, Ian suddenly blinks as he finally registers the awkward silence. Ian casually apologizes, explaining that the delicious food distracted him while talking to his pet bird. Snapping his fingers, the noble announces a reward for safely rescuing his beloved niece. Opening the chest, a brilliant golden light bursts forth, revealing a legendary magic scroll. A majestic magical aura wraps around the scroll, promising immense power once it is torn. Sweating with excitement, Ian marvels at the exceptional quality of the scroll's runic text. Pleased with the wizard's reaction, the smug noble asks if the rare gift meets his expectations. Bowing respectfully, Ian eagerly thanks his host for such an incredibly valuable treasure. The noble waves it off, asserting that saving his niece is worth far more than any relic. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the noble summons a special guest to join the feast. The heavy double doors swing open, revealing a beautiful purple-haired girl dressed in wizard robes. Spotting her absurdly oversized pointy hat, Ian immediately bursts out laughing, failing to contain himself. He covers his face, desperately wondering where on earth she found such a ridiculous hat. Blushing with intense embarrassment, the young woman stammers nervously in front of the laughing wizard. Stepping closer, she shyly greets Ian and asks if he has been doing well since their last meeting. As they talk, the elder playfully teases Ian about her being a romantic partner, earning a sharp, flustered rejection. Intrigued by the noble's dramatic words, the young wizard inquires about what he wants. With a solemn expression, the purple-haired mage reveals the quest is a mission of personal vengeance. The desperate count passionately pleads for the group to lend him their legendary strength. Realizing the true motive behind the gift of the Golden Scroll, Ian quickly calculates his options. The clever mage schemes to provide only minimal support to secure a massive double reward. Lost in his greedy delusions of grandeur, Ian imagines himself relaxing atop a massive mountain of gold. Returning to reality, the young wizard feigns immense humility while offering his assistance to the shocked hosts. With a calculating glint in his eyes, Ian prepares for the lucrative journey ahead. 3 days fly by in a flash as preparations for the grand expedition finally wrap up. Gathering in the courtyard, the battle-hardened elder extends a warm farewell to the departing group. The elder and the young wizard share a firm handshake, cementing their newfound mutual respect. Ian secretly notes how significantly the local military forces have dwindled due to the Count's greed. Smiling warmly, the elder expresses his deep gratitude to the young wizard for all his help. The elder cordially invites Ian to visit Trifar Island to uncover ancient hidden mysteries. He explains that the mythical floating island will warmly welcome anyone who seeks him out. Curious about his companion's true identity, Ian asks if that is his real name. The shocking revelation of the legendary name immediately leaves the purple-haired mage completely paralyzed with disbelief. The young woman stammers in sheer awe, realizing she's standing before a legendary warrior. She passionately explains the glorious history of the elite mercenary group directly serving the former emperor. History books recall how the glorious emperor granted their formidable leader the prestigious title of Swordmaster. Pointing a trembling finger, the young mage realizes she has been traveling with a living Lijing. The legendary Swordmaster stands revealed, radiating an aura of unparalleled martial power. The majestic presence of the veteran warrior commands absolute respect from everyone around him. Completely unbothered by the grand revelation, Ian reacts with absolute, hilarious indifference. The epic journey takes an exciting turn as a new chapter of adventure officially begins. Outraged by his complete lack of respect, the purple-haired mage furiously scolds the unbothered wizard. Amused by the young mage's typical indifference, the legendary swordmaster bursts into hearty laughter. Salvador chuckles warmly, reminiscing about the countless hot-headed challengers who always tried to defeat him. With their farewells complete, the legendary warrior and the old witch prepare to depart. The grateful royal knights bid their heroic saviors a highly emotional and respectful farewell. A tearful knight dramatically grips Ian's hand, begging to meet again in the future. Stepping away, the swordmaster turns back to offer a final lingering look of parting. A firm, parting handshake seals their unspoken promise to meet once more. Ian confidently promises that he will make the dangerous journey to Trifar Island once things settle down. The veteran warrior smiles warmly, looking forward to their inevitable reunion. Under a brilliant, sunlit sky, the legendary party finally parts ways, leaving only high hopes behind. A grand military flag flutters proudly in the wind, signaling the start of a massive campaign. A colossal army of heavily armored knights stands in perfect formation, ready to march on command. Clad in heavy steel armor, the Count recalls his niece's desperate plea for justice. Dark, vengeful thoughts consume the Count as he prepares to hunt down his sister's killer. A burning memory flashes of the ruthless usurper Graham who dared to murder his younger sister. The cunning Count schemes to use a political marriage to seize absolute control over the neighboring territory. With a cold, scarred gaze, the determined noble prepares to execute his ruthless geopolitical play. The young wizard quietly decides to speak with Lucy once the impending conflict is resolved. Raising his fist, the furious Count commands his massive army to bring swift judgment to the usurper. A deafening roar echoes through the courtyard as the loyal soldiers pledge their lives to their ruler. Leading from the front, the armored Count fiercely rallies his troops to march toward the battlefield. Night falls over the land, casting an ominous shadow of impending war across the horizon. Under the cover of darkness, the massive military expedition sets up their camp. Gathering around the campfire, the confused companions watch in utter bewilderment as Ian bizarrely boils a spoon. An epic campaign under the night sky begins not with a war cry, but with a bizarre campfire recipe. While the knights happily dig into their meal, a flustered Lucy watches the strange scene in utter bewilderment. Ian glares as the gossiping knights whisper about his bizarre cooking habits, sharply snapping that he is merely sterilizing his spoon. Lucy blinks in absolute blank confusion, completely unfamiliar with the modern concept of sterilization. Ian casually dismisses her confusion, calling it a mystery that she wouldn't be able to comprehend anyway. Overhearing his words, the two knights look instantly enlightened, humorously concluding that sterilization must be a profound magical secret. As Ian sits quietly by his boiling pot, a knight tentatively approaches to get his attention. The knights excitedly present giant rolls of raw meat, asking if the wizard can boil those too, pushing Ian's patience to the absolute limit. Sure, next they'll ask him to charge their medieval phones. A peaceful silence settles over the sprawling military encampment under the vast night sky. Staring at their empty bowls, Lucy reveals she has been giving their promised reward some serious thought. The dark memory flashes of Lucy weeping in despair while Ian reached out to comfort her. Lucy explained she wanted to offer gold, but realized he must be tired of wealth, choosing a far more unique reward instead. A magnificent glowing magical sword appears, hovering over a celestial clack. Lucy passionately recounts the legendary fairy tale behind her family's relic, leaving a deadpan Ian questioning the absurd romance novel logic. Chibi Ian logically questions why her family is still only ranked as barons if they possess such a legendary weapon. Flustered and blushing, Lucy defensively yells that the legendary events took place over 400 years ago. Ian flashes a smug, knowing smile, silently prompting her to reveal the catch. Lucy sheepishly confesses that the legendary magical sword in Arshil is currently buried deep within her ancestor's grave. Sitting by the fire, Lucy clarifies that they would actually have to dig up her ancestor's grave to retrieve the prize, earning a heavy groan from Ian. Utterly dumbfounded, Ian questions the morals of this world, wondering if her ancestor's grave is treated like some cheap time capsule. Ian suggests that she should keep such a valuable family heirloom for her own family's sake. He gently notes that keeping the relic is a far better choice than letting others exploit her family. Looking up at the bell tower, Lucy sincerely thanks Ian, explaining that his actions have finally given her the courage and right to fight. Trembling with emotion, she tightly clutches her hands, asserting that he truly deserves a worthy thank you gift. Standing up with sudden dramatic energy, Lucy loudly insists on giving him the precious family relic. Overwhelmed by her own feelings, Lucy suddenly bolts into the night, leaving a startled Ian calling her name. Ian scratches his head in awkward realization, wondering if his blunt advice was a bit too harsh. Suddenly, a firm armored boot steps forward, interrupting his thoughts. A veteran royal guard approaches Ian, requesting that he join the Count immediately. The bright full moon illuminates a quiet town at midnight. An angry townsperson with a pitchfork fiercely confronts 3 armored soldiers, demanding the thieves leave immediately. The smug, freckle-faced soldier mockingly demands 3 chickens in exchange for their peaceful departure. As the soldier violently grabs the pitchfork, he suddenly freezes upon spotting a familiar crow watching from above. The 2 soldiers peer nervously into the dark tree branches, debating if the bird belongs to the young mage. Spreading its wings, the red-eyed crow loudly screeches, declaring that its master has arrived. The soldiers recoil in absolute horror as the crow speaks, just as a towering dark shadow looms behind them. Cold sweat pours down the terrified soldiers' faces as they shake in fear. Ian steps forward with a glowing blue staff and a terrifying glare, coldly demanding to know what they're doing. Inside the quiet chambers, 2 lit candles flicker against the darkness. Seated in the private study, Count Katina solemnly asks Ian for a personal favor. The promotional cover marks the start of Chapter 20. The Count clears his throat awkwardly, leaving Ian to wonder what request is so difficult to voice. With a grave look, the Count requests that Ian put a stop to the mercenaries' corrupt deeds in the town. Ian logically questions why the Count's own knights aren't handled with this kind of peacekeeping job. Clasping his hands tightly, the Count reveals that his own knights are actively covering up and overlooking the mercenaries' crimes. The corrupt soldiers stand smugly together, enjoying their absolute impunity. A textual shift reveals the Count's inner conflict over his troops' behavior. The Count looks down with deep sadness, stating that the suffering territory belongs to his beloved niece. Locking his eyes onto the young wizard, the Count desperately pleads for his help. Back in the present, Ian's eyes glow with a cold, terrifying magical light. The corrupt, chicken-stealing soldiers are left tied up on the ground, whimpering in absolute terror of the wizard's wrath. Caught red-handed under the cold moonlight, Ian fiercely scolds the corrupt soldiers for looting people's homes like common thieves while his crow caws in agreement. Brandishing his staff, Ian threatens to punish them and make a harsh example of their crimes, prompting the terrified soldiers to weep and beg for mercy. A new day dawns as bright morning sunlight bathes the peaceful town, shifting the scene back to the military headquarters. With the corrupt mercenaries successfully neutralized, Ian stands triumphantly over the captives as they bow in absolute defeat. Word of the wizard's wrath spreads quickly, leaving the remaining corrupt mercenaries terrified to even step outside their doors for fear of certain death. Upon hearing the successful news of the town's liberation, Count Katina and Lucy are filled with immense joy and relief. The celebratory mood is suddenly cut short as a scarred knight rushes into the chambers, kneeling urgently before Count Katina. A heavy, ominous silence falls over the room as the messenger delivers the grim warning that a terrible political crisis has just occurred. Count Katina and Lucy freeze in utter shock, their fleeting happiness instantly turning into sheer dread. Ian stands quietly by as a massive, unexpected complication in their military campaign threatens to derail their entire strategy. The scarred knight grits his teeth, deeply troubled by the looming tactical nightmare they now face. Ian logically questions why their campaign is stalling when they possess an impressive army of over 400 soldiers. The knight grimly explains that their excessive discipline has backfired, rendering their peaceful army completely harmless in the face of psychological warfare. In a grim flashback, the knight explains that if their army had aggressively looted the territory, the angry populace would have pressured the usurper Graham to surrender. Instead, the local citizens have united in a massive public outcry against any form of outside military intervention. Because the Count's forces are marching so peacefully, the ruthless usurper Graham has gained precious time to consolidate his army. This tactical belay allows the monstrous usurper to tighten his iron grip over the helpless citizens, threatening to crush any hope of rebellion. With their movement severely restricted, the soldiers' morale is plummeted to the point of whispering about potential mutiny. Staring into the distance, Ian silently reflects on how bizarre and chaotic this military campaign has quickly become. The knight asks if they should finally permit looting to break the deadlock, leaving a conflicted Count Katina clutching his head in deep moral distress. Desperate for a way out of the strategic deadlock, Count Katina turns to Ian to ask if the young wizard has a plan. Lucy watches the tense exchange in silence, praying for a miracle to save her family's stolen territory. Ian's calculating gaze sharpens as a brilliant, incredibly cunning scheme begins to form in his mind. Breaking his silence, Ian confidently assures them that a viable path to victory still exists. Lucy and Count Katina instantly light up with comical starry-eyed excitement, eagerly begging Ian to reveal his genius method. Back at the military encampment, the oblivious guards stand watch, completely unaware of the bizarre plot unfolding. The disgruntled soldiers scoff among themselves, complaining that the young wizard is far too arrogant for his own good. Deep within the occupied Talian territory, the first critical phase of Ian's unconventional scheme officially begins. An angry local landowner storms out of his house, furiously screaming at Ian's incredibly noisy crow. The landowner's anger instantly turns to pure terror as he turns to find Ian staring back at him with a menacing, shadowy gaze. Pointing his magical staff toward the crops, Ian demands to know if the trembling man is the owner of the wheat field. The farmer demands to know his identity, only for the accompanying knight to proudly announce Ian as the legendary disciple of Mage Eurytus. Hearing the legendary name, the distraught farmer freezes in absolute paralyzing disbelief. The man instantly drops to his knees in a desperate laughing apology, begging the famous mage to forgive his rudeness. Ian maintains a cool, unbothered expression, quietly preparing to execute his theatrical performance. Ian sighs dramatically and declares that the crops are completely ruined, leaving the kneeling farmer utterly bewildered. Raising his glowing staff, Ian dramatically warns that a terrifying, malevolent energy has completely infested the entire field. Ian spins a terrifying tale, claiming that the angry spirit of the first Baron Talion is wreaking vengeance upon the stolen land. Completely falling for the act, the terrified farmer weeps in despair, begging the wizard for a way to save him. Ian suddenly commands silence, dramatically clutching his head as if receiving a direct, agonizing revelation from the heavens. Pointing dramatically to the sky, Ian proclaims that the heavens will only be appeased if Lucy Talion inherits her rightful title as Baron. Ian and his knights quickly run off to spread the curse elsewhere, leaving the panicked local calling after them in a frenzy. Left alone in terror, the horrified farmer realizes that the usurper's reign is bringing divine ruin upon their homes. Some time passes as the brilliant psychological warfare spreads like wildfire through the territory. Ian's fabricated rumors spark a massive rebellion, prompting the local citizens to turn on Graham and demand Lucy's rightful succession. With public sentiment shifting in their favor, the Count's army experiences a massive boost in morale as Lucy proudly joins the fray. The high-ranking knights look on in awe, realizing the sheer genius of Ian's unconventional psychological warfare. Back at the military command post, a scout arrives to deliver an urgent report to the Count. The scout reveals that the enemy's demoralized forces are beginning to crumble from within, refusing to fight on a dishonorable battlefield. Count Katina listens in sheer amazement as the commander explains how Ian's brilliant rumors of a divine curse have completely shattered the enemy's resolve. Tensions explode within the war room as the military command fractures under immense political pressure, with the disgruntled knights aggressively arguing that associating with a deceptive wizard will utterly ruin their honor. Ian directly confronts the grumbling soldiers, pointing out the hypocrisy of their sudden panic over a curse he openly admits to fabricating. The stubborn guards double down on their hostility, loudly claiming the young wizard is merely trying to manipulate them once again. His eye flashing with a sharp, calculating light, Ian fiercely challenges their illogical bias against his words. Exasperated by their stubbornness, Ian facepalms in absolute disbelief at the sheer stupidity of their forced argument. Despite the wizard's irritation, the cold political reality remains that the elite knights are the true power on the battlefield. Glancing back, Ian notices that Count Katina is clearly paralyzed by his desperate dependence on these noble forces. The stark truth is made clear. Without the compliance of these proud warriors, the campaign cannot proceed. Realizing the Count is completely trapped by his own men, Ian quietly contemplates walking away from the ungrateful army. Count Katina flinches in panic as the wizard suddenly addresses him directly. Turning his back on the political circus, Ian boldly declares his immediate departure, leaving the startled Count calling after him. The dismissive knights watch him go, entirely convinced they no longer need his unorthodox methods. Before leaving, Ian delivers a chilling final warning that he will not offer any assistance when their arrogance inevitably backfires. A flurry of chaotic conflicts and strange mythical entities looms as the strategic tension reaches its boiling point. Lucy desperately rushes out of the command tent, calling out for Ian to wait. Catching her breath, Lucy tearfully apologizes for the knight's terrible behavior and lack of gratitude. She explains how helpless her uncle felt under the immense pressure of his own military commanders. Seeing her sincere distress, Ian finds his irritation instantly melting away into quiet relief. With a calm expression, Ian reassures her that he holds no lingering resentment. He lightheartedly dismisses the battlefield as nothing more than a dreary place of death he is glad to leave. Lucy remains deeply concerned that leaving will cost him the military glory and achievements he rightfully earned. The young wizard simply smiles, his intentions far more personal than mere political prestige. He reaches out, gently patting her head to soothe her worries. Ian warmly explains that he only cares about securing the legendary family sword she originally promised him. Lucy's eyes instantly light up with intense starstruck adoration. Overwhelmed by emotion, Lucy wildly promises the sword and dramatically offers her hand in marriage, prompting an immediate rejection from the sweating wizard. Despite her desperate, comical pleas to take her hand and her territory, Ian flatly declines as they walk away from the encampment. A few days later, a massive military host marches proudly under the blazing sun. The thunderous sound of galloping hooves echoes across the vast valley as the forces advance. The ruthless Captain Graham confidently mocks the enemy's numbers, completely unfazed by their opposition. A fierce, sadistic light burns in Graham's orange eyes as he prepares for bloodshed. Spotting Lucy in the distance, Graham sneers at her foolish decision to ally with the Count. He smugly visualizes crushing Lucy in the palm of his hand, intending to claim her as his prize once the battle is won. Graham boasts of his secret weapon, a legendary Black Knight from the Eastern Empire who stands ready to slaughter. The tyrannical captain grins, completely assured of his absolute victory. An urgent scout suddenly rides up to announce the formal arrival of the enemy forces. Graham aggressively draws his blade, declaring that numbers mean absolutely nothing to him. Brandishing his weapon high, he rallies his troops with a bloodthirsty vow to execute anyone who stands in his way. With a roaring battle cry, Graham's ruthless vanguard charges down the grassy slope. The two armies violently collide in a chaotic, sparkling clash of steel on horseback. At the commanding hill, Count Katina watches the engagement safely surrounded by his personal guard. The brown-haired knight confidently reports that their forces hold a decisive tactical advantage. Ian watches the battle progress, expecting a swift and straightforward victory based on their superior numbers. Suddenly, the wizard's eyes widen in sheer shock as a terrifying presence registers on the battlefield. The mysterious Black Knight unleashes a devastating high-speed strike that instantly cleaves through an allied soldier. The brown-haired knight grimly alerts Ian to the terrifying origin of this monstrous warrior. The knight explains the legendary pedigree of the Black Knight's freezing homeland, leaving a bewildered Ian to wonder why such a powerhouse is fighting here. The foreign warrior effortlessly slaughters allied soldiers, leaving a trail of blood and absolute panic in his wake. With a single massive circular swing of his blade, the Black Knight decimates an entire squad of horsemen. Ian's face breaks into a cold sweat as he realizes this single monstrous variable could completely ruin their entire campaign. The battle hangs in a dangerous balance as the Allied Center Division collapses under pressure. Feeling a growing sense of dread, Ian realizes things are about to take a turn for the worse. Sweating profusely, Sir Decade warns Ian of the absolute disaster that awaits if the center line breaks. The brave knight looks on in terror, realizing they are directly next in the line of slaughter. At high command, Lucy and the guards watch in utter shock as their front lines completely crumble. They realize that if the center breaks, the enemy forces will ignore the fleeing soldiers and target the Count. The furious Count violently vents his frustration while his anxious guards desperately beg him to calm down. Consumed by immense pressure, the panicked leader prepares to make a final, highly risky tactical decision. Ian's heart sinks as he discovers that the noble Sir Decade has been assigned to the suicide mission. A poignant memory flashes back of Sir Decade, the only warrior who ever treated Ian with true respect. Knowing this hopeless command is a death sentence, Ian desperately searches his mind for another way out. Sir Decade resolutely places his hand on his sword, fully prepared to meet his grim fate. With unwavering loyalty, the seasoned knight accepts the final order to sacrifice himself for the crown. Refusing to let him go, Ian confronts the knight and demands to know why he is throwing his life away. Sir Decade solemnly declares his duty to follow the Count's orders and stop the enemy advance. Ian points out the absolute futility of fighting against such a monstrous, unstoppable threat. He urgently pleads with the knight to abandon the foolish command and retreat alongside the Count. Sir Decade acknowledges the grim truth, but Ian fiercely protests against such a senseless, outdated sacrifice. Raising his staff, Ian argues passionately that throwing lives away is not a real strategy. Frustrated by the tragic reality, Ian laments a world that constantly demands the deaths of its most honorable men. A frantic messenger suddenly gallops up to deliver urgent news directly to Sir Decade. Looking closely, Ian's eyes widen as he recognizes the newly arrived knight who abandoned his post. Sir Silk shamelessly announces their total defeat and declares his immediate plan to retreat. Disgusted by the coward's lack of honor, Ian listens as Sir Decade urges him to flee with the nobility. The selfless knight calmly resolves to stay behind and buy them precious time with his life. With a roaring battle cry, Sir Decade charges back toward the chaos of the battlefield. Ian watches the knight's retreating figure, deeply questioning the morality of this sacrifice. Standing amidst cowards, Ian realizes he cannot let the only true knight of the realm die a dog's death. Watching the fleeing nobles, Ian decided he will not let a brave man be sacrificed for their foolishness. Lucy desperately begs Ian to turn back and join their retreat before the enemy closes in. Disregarding her pleas, the young wizard swiftly mounts his horse and prepares to ride into danger. Ian loudly commands Lucy to flee with the cowards while he charges back to the front lines. Lucy freezes in absolute shock as the young wizard boldly declares he will join Sir Decade's final stand. Offering a confident, reassuring smirk, Ian tells her to survive as he rides into the fray. He thunderously gallops back toward the battlefield while Lucy helplessly calls after him in terror. A shifting tide of conflict looms over the horizon as the ultimate clash draws near. Galloping down the dusty path, Sir Decade is startled to hear a familiar voice calling his name. Sir Decade looks back in utter disbelief as Ian rides up, promising to lure the enemy away. The knight demands he return to protect the Count, but Ian flatly refuses to leave him to fight alone. With a sharp, powerful gaze, the young wizard proudly reminds the knight of his magical prowess. Smirking confidently, Ian reassures him that he is more than capable of keeping himself safe. Looking into his eyes, Sir Decade is taken aback by the immense, unmistakable power the boy radiates. Sir Decade smiles in relief, just as the distant roars of the pursuing enemy vanguard echo through the hills. The ruthless enemy cavalry advances at breakneck speed, intent on crushing any resistance. Trusting the young wizard's plan, Sir Decade prepared to split up and coordinate their counterstrike. Ian bids him to stay safe as they divide the enemy's attention. Turning back, Ian assesses the pursuing forces and prepares to unleash his dangerous scheme. A deadly projectile narrowly grazes Ian, violently detonating against a massive tree beside him. His dramatic crow begins to panic over their impending doom, earning a sharp reprimand from the irritated wizard. With the enemy hot on his heels, a cunning light gleams in Ian's eyes as he prepares to lead them deep into the dark forest. As the jaws of a deadly trap snap shut, enemy pursuers roar with bloodlust as they charge after the young wizard riding into the dark woods. An ominous gloom instantly swallows the forest path, signaling that a dark magical trap is about to spring. Halting their horses, the heavily armored pursuers split up to search the thick undergrowth, certain their target is cornered nearby. Suddenly, a scout spots a cloaked figure on horseback holding a mysterious glowing object in the dim shadows ahead. Safely hidden under his hood, Ian prepares his magical trap with a cold smirk as he unfurls a high-tier spell scroll. With a swift and decisive motion, the young wizard tears the scroll to unleash his destructive magical payload. A devastating pillar of blue lightning violently rains down from the heavens, completely decimating the forest clearing. The pursuers scream in sheer agony as the explosive electrical shockwave blasts them off their feet in a blinding burst of power. Silence returns to the smoking clearing as Ian calmly rides away, leaving his defeated pursuers scattered across the charred dirt. Taking a breath, the blue-cloaked wizard looks relieved as his crow companion watches, satisfied that his magical trap successfully thinned their numbers. Yet, a cold dread lingers in Ian's mind as he desperately worries if Sir Decade managed to protect the retreating Count. Unknown to the wizard, a mysterious knight clad in dark plate armor silently observes him from the cover of a massive tree before turning to investigate. The silent observer slinks back into the deep shadows, keeping a close eye on the wizard's movements. Meanwhile, the desperate retreat of Count Katina's party is cut short as horses gallop through the dense forest under the gloomy canopy. A hostile ambush party suddenly blocks their path, with the enemy scouts eagerly declaring they have found the fleeing Count. The mustache-wearing Count gasps in absolute shock, completely blindsided by the sudden appearance of the enemy vanguard. Without a moment of hesitation, an enemy crossbowman yells to open fire and unleashes a deadly projectile at the fleeing nobles. A piercing arrow strikes the Count squarely in his armored shoulder, unleashing a painful spray of blood. The force of the sudden impact violently throws the wounded Count off his horse as the animal rears up in panic. He crashes heavily onto the forest floor, completely defenseless as his horse bolts into the darkness. Seeing their leader fall, the Count's remaining loyal guards bravely rally to form a desperate defensive line around him. Blade clashes against steel as a loyal knight viciously counterattacks to hold off the advancing enemy riders. Despite their valiant effort, another defender is ruthlessly cut down as the wounded Count watches on in sheer agony. Seeing the slaughter, Lucy and her remaining defender watch in absolute horror as their final defenses crumble. The smug enemy commander levels his crossbow at the fallen leader, mockingly ordering him to surrender quietly. Summoning every last ounce of his remaining strength, the defiant Count unleashes a ferocious, blood-spitting roar. Standing tall with a blood-stained mace, the brave noble prepares for one final, suicidal charge to protect his niece. The enemy commander is taken aback by the Count's terrifying resolve, sweating as he wonders if this dying man is a monster. With a cold, clinical pull of the trigger, a deadly bolt is fired, piercing the brave leader through his chest. Lucy and her remaining knights scream in absolute devastation as they watch the Count take his fatal blow. Collapsing into his weeping niece's arms, the dying noble weakly whispers Lucy's name with his final breath. Overwhelmed by grief, Lucy weeps inconsolably over her uncle's lifeless body as the grim reality of her loss sets in. The enemy commander curses under his breath, realizing they failed to capture the Count alive as Captain Graham had strictly ordered. Looking at the sobbing noblewoman, he quickly decides they must at least capture Lucy to salvage their mission. Raising his weapon high, the commander orders his remaining foot soldiers to seize the defenseless girl. The last loyal knight bravely steps forward, brandishing his blade and screaming at the enemy to stay back. But he is instantly overwhelmed, suffering a brutal, fatal slash across his chest as he is cut down in seconds. Lucy watches in absolute terror as her final defender falls dead onto the blood-soaked dirt. The enemy soldiers slowly close in on her as she desperately vows that she will never let herself be handed over to Graham. Crying tears of pure helplessness, Lucy squeezes her eyes shut and desperately begs for anyone to save her. Out of nowhere, a blinding burst of purple magical energy slices through the darkness right as she calls out Ian's name. A thick shroud of dark purple mist suddenly erupts across the clearing, completely throwing the attacking soldiers into panic. The magical haze completely blinds the enemy forces as they desperately yell that they cannot see a thing. Amidst the total chaos, a gloved hand suddenly reaches out from the purple shadows and firmly grabs Lucy's arm. With effortless strength, Ian pulls the startled girl close onto his horse as they make a daring escape. Gazing up in utter disbelief, Lucy watches the young wizard steer his mount through the darkness, tears streaming down her face. Feeling his strong presence, Lucy's rapid heartbeat echoes as she stares at her savior with absolute awe. Overwhelmed by relief, her face flushes bright red as she realizes her beloved hero actually came back to rescue her. Steering his horse to safety, Ian urgently demands to know what happened to the Count while a dazed Lucy attempts to gather her thoughts. A heavy silence falls over the young noblewoman as she remembers her uncle's tragic fate, leaving the wizard to realize they are truly on their own. Pulling Lucy close on his horse, Ian anxiously asks if she is injured, receiving her breathless, tearful gratitude. Looking up in distress, Lucy desperately asks what is happening and begs for news about Sir Decade. Sweating with concern, Ian grimly explains that Sir Decade likely encountered trouble while trying to reach him. Though Lucy despairs, Ian firmly urges her toward the river to find a way to escape. Narrowing his eyes, Ian reveals they must urgently shake off the dangerous pursuer close behind. To Lucy's absolute horror, the formidable Black Knight suddenly emerges from the shadows, relentlessly giving chase. Thunderous hooves violently splash through the water as the high-stakes pursuit crashes into the river. Trapped in the current, Ian and Lucy halt as their terrifying pursuer blocks the path ahead. Staring down their hunter, the young wizard realizes that getting captured here means certain death. Pointing his blade, the cold mercenary demands they immediately surrender the young noblewoman. Holding Lucy tight, Ian stands firm against the knight's threatening demands. Defiantly, Ian mockingly questions if the mercenary knows their employer is utter human trash. Overwhelmed by painful memories, Lucy's eyes swell with rage at the mention of her enemy. Crying out in anger, Lucy declares that the murderous usurper, Graham, deserves nothing but death. Pointing out the villain's crimes, Ian questions if this fight is worth the mercenary's soul. Behind the dark helmet, the mercenary momentarily pauses before dismissing any moral obligations. With a cold warning, the knight readies a massive blade to force their compliance. As the horse splashes into the deep water, the tension reaches a deadly breaking point. Smirking confidently, Ian quietly prepares to trigger his hidden magical trap. Sensing the hidden danger, the mercenary's mount suddenly panics as its eyes glow red. The startled horse violently bucks, throwing the heavily armored rider completely off balance. Crashing heavily onto the muddy ground, the formidable hunter is instantly brought low. Struggling to rise, the dazed knight angrily demands to know what trickery the boy used. Unleashing his magic, Ian triumphantly commands the river's raging currents to rise. A massive wall of churning water surges upward, leaving the helpless knight utterly speechless. The violent, roaring torrent crashes down, completely swallowing the armored warrior in its depths. A colossal explosion of water decimates the riverbank, leaving nothing but swirling foam. While Lucy calls out to Ian, the wizard approaches the motionless armor to check for life. Peering closely, Ian is struck by a sudden, unexpected realization. Distracted for a comical second, the young wizard cannot help but admire the incredibly cool black armor. Sweat dropping, he quickly refocuses, worrying the unconscious foe might wake up and stab him. Despite Lucy's confusion, Ian decides it is far safer to disarm the threat immediately. Reaching down, the young wizard carefully unclasps and slides off the heavy iron helmet. Removing the mask, Ian and Lucy gasp in sheer disbelief at the face underneath. The helmet falls away to reveal a beautiful unconscious blonde-haired woman. The scene shifts as night falls with a warm campfire crackling in the quiet forest. Tied securely to a tree, the defeated mercenary slowly begins to regain consciousness. Noticing her movement, Ian casually asks if she is finally awake. Sitting comfortably by the fire, the duo watches their captive alongside her confiscated armor. Realizing she's stripped of her gear, the blonde-haired woman furiously demands her armor back. Resting his chin on his hand, Ian calmly explains that disarming her was necessary for safety. Blushing with deep embarrassment, the captive groans while Lucy happily taunts her. Smirking, Lucy teases the mercenary for dressing up as a man to find cheap thrills. Watching the exchange, Ian's sweat drops, realizing Lucy can be incredibly savage with her words. In this fantasy world wherein clothes of the opposite sex is strictly forbidden by law, for modern reference, it is about as embarrassing as getting arrested in a maid outfit. Gleefully, Lucy threatens to spread ruinous rumors about the dreaded Black Knight's true identity. Shaking with anger, the female knight desperately begs them to protect her professional honor. Lucy coldly scoffs, questioning if a greedy mercenary even possesses any honorable values. Veins popping in fury, the bound knight snaps, setting up a hilarious battle of wills. Tensions flare by the campfire as Ian urges Lucy to calm down, though the trembling young noblewoman desperately denies being worked up. Clutched by immense grief and fear, Lucy stands completely frozen as her overwhelming emotions threaten to break her spirit. Recognizing her deep trauma, Ian gently instructs the exhausted girl to step away and get some much-needed rest. Softening her stance, Lucy holds onto his cloak and softly apologizes for her emotional outburst before leaving him. Watching her retreat into the shadows of the forest, the young wizard lets out a heavy, weary sigh. Turning his attention back to their captive, Ian approaches the tied-up blonde knight and casually dismisses her current embarrassment. Surprised by his lighthearted attitude, the captive questions his religious devotion to the church's sacred laws regarding gendered attire. With a casual shrug, Ian completely throws her off guard by revealing that he actually is a believer. Confused by his lack of judgment, the blonde-haired woman asks how a true believer can find her cross-dressing acceptable. Ian calmly explains that cross-dressing is common where he comes from, leaving her utterly baffled by his strange logic. A bizarre vision of a burly man dressed in cat-eared maid cosplay leaves both the captive and the young wizard in an awkward, silent deadpan. Ian reassures the distressed knight, telling her that being caught in men's armor is hardly a tragedy worth despairing over. Despite his comforting words, the bound mercenary looks down in deep somber silence as she reflects on her defeat. Under the glowing night sky, the blonde knight notes how eccentric the young wizard is despite his incredible magical prowess. Demanding to be treated with the dignity of her station, she requests to be untied, only for Ian to flatly reject her out of distrust. Furious at his refusal, the captive passionately swears on her sacred honor as a knight that she will never attack them. Unmoved by her emotional outburst, Ian points out that she is not even bothered to reveal her true name. As the young wizard continues to doubt her sincerity, the captive suddenly cuts him off by offering her name. Caught completely off guard, Ian stares back in utter surprise at the sudden breakthrough. With fierce pride, she proudly declares herself as Belenka of the noble Metz family, hinting at a far grander destiny than a simple mercenary.